Well, I think that thus far the genius of this kind of underground that we're talking about is that it has no leadership. The Western world has labored for many, many centuries under a monarchical conception of the universe, that nature is run by a boss. And what we need to realize is that there can be, shall we say, a movement, a stirring among people, which can be organically designed instead of politically designed. It has no boss.
Welcome to Being in the Way, the Alan Watts podcast, and I'm your host, Mark Watts. And today we're going to hear a very unique recording. It's from the summer of 1967. It was recorded on my father's houseboat, the ferryboat Vallejo in Sausalito. And it's a discussion that he had with Tim Leary, Allen Ginsberg, Alan Cohen of the Oracle, and Gary Snyder. And it's very interesting because they were talking about the Great Society, ideas for how to live with a culture that wasn't anchored to the military-industrial complex of the time. It has a lot of resonances for us today and some very interesting and practical advice. And it also shows my father in a different role than we usually hear him. Here he's the host and master of ceremonies, and at times moderating a humorous conversation between these fellows. So it's Alan Watts, Allen Ginsberg, Tim Leary, Alan Cohen, and Gary Snyder in Changes, the Houseboat Summit, summer of 67, ferryboat Vallejo, Sausalito, California. Enjoy the discussion.
This is Alan Watts speaking, and I'm this evening on my ferryboat the host to a fascinating party sponsored by the San Francisco Oracle, which is our new underground paper, far outer than any far out that has yet been seen. And we have here Alan Cohen representing the paper, the Oracle. We have Allen Ginsberg, poet and rabbinic sadhu. We have Timothy Leary, about whom nothing needs to be said, and Gary Snyder, also poet, Zen monk, and old friend of many years.
Everybody is all bugged because they think, one, the dropout thing really doesn't mean anything. It's what you're going to cultivate is a lot of freak-out hippies goofing around and throwing bottles through windows when they flip out on LSD. That's their stereotyped vision. Obviously a stereotype.
Sounds like Bolsheviks.
Second, it's no different from the newspaper vision anyway. I mean, they've got the newspaper vision. And secondly, they're afraid that there'll be some sort of fascist putsch, like is rumored lately. Everybody's going to be arrested, so that the lack of organization the lack of community, the lack of communicating community among the hippies will lead to some concentration camp situation, or lead, as it has been in Los Angeles recently, to a dispersal of what beginning of the community began.
These are the old menopausal minds. There was a psychiatrist named Adler in San Francisco whose interpretation of the Butte-Bean was that this is the basis for new fascism when a leader comes along. And I sensed in the activist movement the cry for a leader, the cry for
but they're just
organization.
as intelligent as you are on this fact. They know about what happened in Russia. That's the reason that they haven't got a big active organization, is because they too are stumped by how do you have a community and a community movement and cooperation within the community to make life more pleasing for everybody, including the end of the Vietnam War. How do you have such a situation organized or disorganized, as long as it's effective, without a fascist leadership? Because they don't want to be that either. See, they are conscious of the fact that they don't want to be messiahs, political messiahs. At least Savio is particularly, he wants to go out. Yesterday he was weeping, saying he wanted to go out and live in nature.
Beautiful.
So, I mean, he's like basically where we are stumped.
Well, I think that thus far the genius of this kind of underground that we're talking about is that it has no leadership. The Western world has labored for many, many centuries under a monarchical conception of the universe, where God is the boss, and political systems and all kinds of law have been based on this model of the universe, that nature is run by a boss. Whereas if you take the Chinese view of the world, which is organic, they would say, for example, that the human body is an organization in which there is no boss. It is a situation of order resulting from mutual interrelationship of all the parts. And what we need to realize is that there can be, shall we say, a movement, a stirring among people, which can be organically designed instead of politically designed. It has no boss.
Yeah, well,
and yet all the parts recognize each other in the same way as the cells of the body all cooperate together.
Well, it's a new social structure.
Yes.
It's a new social structure which follows certain kinds of historically known tribal models.
Exactly, yeah. My historical reading of the situation is that these great monolithic blocks that developed in history, Rome, Turkey, so forth, and they always break down when enough people, and it's always the young, the creative, and the minority groups, drop out and go back to a tribal form. And I agree with what I've heard you say in the past, Gary, that the basic unit is tribal. And what I envision is thousands of small groups throughout the United States and Western Europe and eventually the world is dropping out. What happened when Rome fell? What happened when Jerusalem fell? Little groups went off
precisely
together.
What do you mean by dropped out then? Vincent, you haven't dropped out. You dropped out of your job as a psychology teacher in Harvard. Now, what you've dropped into is, one, a highly complicated series of arrangements for lecturing and for putting on the festival.
Well, I'm dropped out of that.
No, but you're not dropped out of the very highly complicated legal constitutional appeals, which you feel a sentimental regard for, as I do. You haven't dropped out of being the financial provider for Millbrook. And you haven't dropped out of planning and conducting community organization and participating in it. And that community organization is related to the national community, too, either through the Supreme Court or through the very existence of the dollar that is exchanged for you to pay your lawyers or to take money to pay your lawyers in the theater. So you can't drop out, because you haven't.
Well, let me explain.
And so they think you mean drop out, go live on the Haight-Ashbury Street and do nothing at all. Even if you can do something like build furniture and sell it or give it away and barter with somebody else.
You have to drop out in a group. You drop out in a small tribal group.
Well, you drop out one by one, but, like you can join the subculture.
Yeah. Or maybe it's a drop out of what?
Gary, I think that you have something to say here, because you, to me, are one of the most fantastically capable dropout people I've ever met. I think that at this point, you should say a word or two about your own experience of how to live on nothing, how to get by in life economically. And this is the nitty-gritty. This is where it really comes down to in many people's minds. Where's the bread going to come from if everybody drops out? Now, you know expertly where it's going to come from, living a life of integrity and not being involved in a commute, necktie strangle news scene.
Well, this isn't news to anybody, but when 10, 15 years ago, when we dropped out, there wasn't a community. And there wasn't anybody who was going to take care of you at all. You were really completely on your own. What it meant was cutting down on your desires and cutting down on your needs to an absolute minimum. And it also meant don't be a bit fussy about how you work or what you do for a living. That meant doing any kind of work. Strawberry picking, carpenter laborer, longshore. Well, longshore is hard to get onto. It paid very well. And shipping out, that also pays very well. But at least in my time, it meant being willing to do any goddamn kind of labor that came your way and not being fussy about it. It meant cultivating the virtue of patience. The patience of sticking with a shitty job long enough to win the bread that you needed to have some more leisure, which meant more freedom to do more things that you wanted to do. And mastering techniques of all kinds of techniques of living really cheap, like getting free rice off the docks because the loading trucks sometimes fork the rice sacks and spill little piles of rice on the docks, which are usually thrown away. But I had it worked out with some of the guards down on the docks that they would gather 15, 25 pounds of rice for me and also tea. And I'd pick it up once a week off the docks, and then I'd take it around and give it to friends. And this was rice that was going to be thrown away otherwise. There's little techniques like that.
Second-day vegetables in the supermarket.
Yeah, we used to go around at 1 or 2 in the morning around the Safeways and the Piggly Wigglies in Berkeley with a shopping bag and hit the garbage cans out and back. And we'd get Chinese cabbage, broccoli, lots of broccoli, and artichokes that were thrown out because they didn't look sellable anymore. So I never bought any vegetables for the 3 years I was a graduate student at Berkeley. And when I made meat, it was usually horse meat from the pet store because they don't have a law that permits them to sell horse meat for human consumption in California like they do in Oregon.
He made delicious horse meat sukiyaki.
Well, I want to add to this, Gary, that during the time when you were living this way, I visited you on occasion, and you had a little hut way up on the hillside on Homestead Valley in Mill Valley. And I want to say, for the record, that this was one of the most beautiful pads I ever saw. It was sweet and clean, and it had a very, very good smell to the whole thing. And you were living what I consider to be a very noble life. Now, then the question that next arises, if this is the way of being a successful dropout, which I think it is true, can you have a wife and child under such circumstances?
Yeah, I think you can, sure.
What about when the state forces you to send the child to school?
You send it to school.
No, come on. I don't see this as a dropout at all.
I want to finish what I was going to say. That's the way it was 10 years ago. Today, there is a community, a huge community, which when you drop out, when any kid drops out today, he's got a subculture to go fall into. He's got a place to go where there'll be friends and people that will put him up and people that will feed him at least for a while and keep feeding him indefinitely if he moves around from pad to pad.
But that's just stage one. The value of the Lower East Side or of the district in Seattle or the Haight-Ashbury is that it provides a first launching pad. Mm-hmm. But that must be seen clearly as a way station. I don't think the Haight-Ashbury district is a place, any city for that matter, is a place where the new tribal consciousness is going to live.
Not
so that when I mean drop out, and I don't want to be misinterpreted, I'm dropping out step by step. Millbrook, by the way, is a tribal community. We're getting closer and closer to the land there. We're working out our way of import and export with the planet. We consider ourselves a tribe of mutants, just like all the little tribes of Indians were. We happen to have our little area there, and we have to come to terms with the white men around us. Yes, there's no...
Okay, but now look, your dropout line is fine for all those other people out there. That's what you got to say to them. But I want to hear what you're building. What are you making?
What are we building?
Yeah, what are you building? I want to hear your views on that. Now, like it's agreed we're dropping out, and there are techniques to do it. Now, what next? Where are we going now? What kind of society are we
I'm making the
envisioning?
prediction that thousands of groups will just look around the fake prop television set of American society and just open one of those doors. And when you open the doors, they don't lead to any room. They lead you out into the Garden of Eden, which is this planet. And then you find yourself a little tribe wandering around. As soon as enough people do this, enough young people do this, it will bring about an incredible change in the consciousness of this country and of the Western world.
Well, that is happening, actually.
Yeah. But that Garden of Eden is full of old rubber truck tires and tin cans right now,
Parts of it are. Each group that drops out has got to use its 2 billion years of cellular equipment to answer those questions. Hey, how are we going to eat? Oh, there's no more paycheck. There's no more fellowship in the university. How are we going to eat? How are we going to keep warm? How are we going to defend ourselves?
What is very important here is that people learn the techniques which have been forgotten, that they learn new structures and new techniques. Like you just can't go out and grow vegetables, man. You've got to know how to do it. Like we've got to learn to do a lot of things we've forgotten to do.
I agree.
That is very true, Gary. Our educational system in its entirety does nothing to give us any kind of material competence. In other words,
exactly.
We don't learn how to cook, how to make clothes, how to build houses, how to make love, or to do any of the absolutely fundamental things of life. The whole education that we get for our children in school is entirely in terms of abstractions. It trains you to be an insurance salesman or a bureaucrat or some kind of cerebral character.
Within the next 5 years, probably, a modest beginning will be made in subculture institutions of higher learning that will informally begin to exist around the country and will provide this kind of education without being linked to the establishment, to big industry, to government.
Well, it's already happening.
It's already happening. I think that we'll see a big extension of that, employing a lot of potentially beautiful teachers who are unemployed at the moment, like there are gurus who are just waiting to be put to use, and also drawing people who are working in the universities with a bad conscience off to join that.
Exactly. See,
but there's a whole new order of technology that is required for this. A whole new science, actually. A whole new physical science is going to emerge for this. Because the boundaries of the old physical science are within the boundaries of the Judeo-Christian and Western imperialist boss sense of the universe that Alan was talking about. In other words, our scientific tradition is caught within the limits of that father figure, Jehovah, or Roman emperor model, which limits our scientific objectivity. And actually holds us back from exploring areas of science which can be explored.
Exactly.
So that really, a new technology goes with this.
Exactly.
It's like the guy in Los Angeles who had a bad trip on LSD and turned himself into the police and wrote, "Please help me," signed, Jehovah.
Beautiful. At that time he caught on, huh?
But here, though, is this thing, you see. We are talking about all this, which is really a rather small movement of people involved in the midst of a fantastic multitude of people who can only continue to survive if automated industry feeds them, clothes them, houses them, and transports them by means of the creation of immense quantities of ersatz material. Fake bread, fake homes, fake clothes, and fake autos. In other words, this thing is going on. This huge, fantastic numbers of people increasing. People think, the population problem, something's going to happen in 5 years from now.
Yeah.
They don't realize it's right on us now. People are coming out of the walls.
We got to start immediately putting the technology underground. I can think of different ways that we can do this symbolically. The solstice, last April 21st, a group of us went out in front of the house in Millbrook, and we took a sledgehammer, and we spent about an hour breaking through the road. And we got this incredible piece of asphalt and rock, about 4 inches. And then we said, hey, underneath this planet somewhere, there's dirt. Yeah, and it was really magical. And once you get a little piece taken out, it took about an hour to get one little piece, then you just go underneath it, and it begins to crumble. So that I think that we should start a movement to 1 hour a day or 1 hour a week, take a little chisel and a little hammer and put a little hole in some of this plastic and just see some earth come up and put a seed there. I can foresee, and then put a little ring of mandalic ring of something around it. I can see the highways, and I can see the subways, and I can see the patios and so forth. Suddenly, the highway department come along and say, there's a rose growing in the middle of Highway 101. And then the robot power group will have to send a group of the highway department to kill the rose and put the asphalt down on the gentle, naked skin of the soil. Now, when they do that, we're getting to them. There'll be pictures in the paper, and consciousness is going to change, because we've got to get to people's consciousness. We've got to let people realize what they're doing to the earth.
And that's the area of poetry you're dealing with now.
There we go. I'm the poet, and you're the politician. I've told you that for 10 years.
I know someone now at State who's studying psychology, and who doesn't know whether to drop out or not, is pulled in 2 directions. I think there are many people like this.
Yes, I think he should drop out, and I want to be absolutely clear on that. And the papers, nobody wants to listen to that simple two-syllable phrase. It gets jargled and jumbled, and I mean it. Now, everyone has to decide how he drops out and when, and he has to time it gracefully, but that's the goal. Now, I can foresee that you might work for Susan Roebuck's for 6 months to get enough money to go to India, because that's part of your dropout. And what I'm doing today now is part of my dropout. I do have responsibilities, contracts, and I don't think that anyone should violate contracts with people that they love.
But look at
a
all
contract
this.
With the university, fine, quit tomorrow. Therefore, I have to detach myself slowly. When I was in India 2 years ago...
India, but, the university's personal relations also. I mean, they're not in contact with the university, they're in contact with persons.
Yeah.
They can't reject those persons necessarily.
Well, you can
stay of your bodhisattva among those persons.
You can, as Tim says, you can gracefully drop out at one time or another, which I take to mean...
I was teaching at Berkeley last week. What do you mean, drop out?
You've got to do your yoga as a college professor. It's part of the thing you're going to have to go through. And after you do that, then you'll shudder and run for the door.
Surely the facts of the matter is that you can do this on a small scale, as an individual, where just a few people are doing this, as they always have done. There have always been a kind of elite minority who dropped out, who were the sages in the mountains.
We're talking a drama now. You're not talking about, anthropological realities. The anthropological reality is that human beings, in their nature, want to be in touch with what's real in themselves and in the universe. And that, for example, the longshoremen with their automation contract in San Francisco, a certain number of them have been laid off for the rest of their lives with full pay. And some of them have been laid off already for 5 years with full pay by their contract. Now, my brother-in-law's a longshoreman. He's been telling me about what's happened to these guys. Most of them are pretty illiterate. A large proportion of them are Negroes. The first thing they all did was get boats and drive around San Francisco Bay because they have all this leisure. Then a lot of them got tired of driving around boats that were just like cars, and they started sailing. Then a few of them started making their own sailboats. They move into and respond to the possibility of challenge. Things become simpler and more complex and more challenging for them. The same is true of hunting. Some guy says, I'm going to go hunting and fishing all the time when I have my leisure, by God. And so he goes hunting all the time. Then he says, I want to do this in a more interesting way. So he takes up bow hunting.
Yeah.
Then the next step is, and this has happened, he says, I'm going to try making my own arrowheads. And he learns how to flake his own arrowheads out. Now, human beings want reality. That's, I think, part of human nature. And television and drinking beer and watching television is what the working man laid off does for the first 2 weeks. But then in the third week, he begins to get bored. And in the fourth week, he wants to do something with his body and with his mind and with his senses. I think that automation in the affluent society, plus psychedelics, plus for some curious reason, a whole catalytic, spiritual change or bend of mind that seems to be taking place in the West today especially, is going to can result ultimately in a vast leisure society in which people will voluntarily reduce their number, and because human beings want to do that which is real, simplify their lives. Like the whole problem of consumption and marketing is radically altered if a large number of people voluntarily choose to consume less. And people will voluntarily choose to consume less if their interests are turned in another direction, if what is exciting to them is no longer things but states of mind.
That's true.
Now, what is happening now is that people are becoming interested in states of mind, and things are really substitutes for states of mind. So what I visualize is a very complex and sophisticated cybernetic technology surrounded by thick hedges of trees, somewhere, say, around Chicago, and the rest of the nation a buffalo pasture.
That's very close to what I think.
With a large number of people going around making their own arrowheads because it's fun, but they know better. Yeah, I mean, they know they don't have to make it.
Now, this is interesting. Our utopian visions are coming closer together. I say that the industry should be underground. You say it should be in Chicago. This is,
yes, but that's the same idea.
Yeah.
But, like those who want to be technological engineers will be respected and allowed to do that.
Yeah.
And the other thing is, like, you can go out and live close to nature, or you can go back and...
But you won't be allowed to drive a car outside this technological...
Well, you won't want to.
Right.
That's the difference, baby. It's not that you won't be allowed to, it's that you won't want to. That's where it's got to be at.
Because it's the same thing when we get down to, say, some fundamental questions of food. more and more one realizes that the mass-produced food is not worth eating. And therefore, in order to delight in things to eat, you go back to the most primitive processes of raising and preparing food, because that has taste in it. And I see that there will be a sort of flip, that as all the possibilities of technology and automation make it possible for everybody to be assured of having the basic necessities of life, they will then say, oh yes, we have all that. Now, let's we can always rely on that, but now in the meantime, while we don't have to work, let's go back to making arrowheads and to raising the most amazing plants.
Yeah. And what would be so funny would be is that they would all get so good at it that the technology center in Chicago would rust away.
Right.
They'd forget they needed it even.
That's exactly what's going to happen. The psychedelic dropouts are going to be having so much fun. They're going to be so much obviously
But Tim,
healthier.
do you see any indication among people who are at present really turned on that they are cultivating this kind of material competence? Now, I haven't seen too much of it yet. I went to...
Some of those kids at Big Sur have got it.
Yeah, maybe you're right.
They're learning. Like a few years ago, they used to go down to Big Sur and they didn't know how to camp or how to dig latrines. But like what Martine has been telling me, and what I've seen down there lately, is that they're getting very sharp about what to gather that's edible, how to get sea salt, what are the edible plants, the edible seaweed. And the revolutionary technological book for this state is A.L. Kroger's Handbook of the California Indians, which tells you what's good to eat and how to prepare
that's what I wanted you to bring out. But the thing is this, look, so many people I know who...
And also what to use for Tampax, milkweed fluff.
Beautiful.
And diapers made of shredded cedar bark.
Yeah.
The whole thing is all there.
A.L. Kroger.
Handbook of the California Indians.
Beautiful.
But the thing that is this, I found so many people who, are of the turned-on type. And the circumstances and surroundings under which they live are just plain cruddy. You would think that people who had seen what you can see with the visions of psychedelics would reflect themselves in forms of life and art that would be like Persian miniatures, because obviously Persian miniatures, Moorish arabesques are all reflecting the state of mind of people who are turned on. And they are rich and glorious beyond belief.
Majestic,
yeah. Well, now, why doesn't it so occur? It is slowly beginning to happen, because I've noticed that recently all turned-on people are becoming more colorful. They're wearing beads and gorgeous clothes and so on and so forth, and it's gradually coming out because you remember the old beatnik days when everybody was in blue jeans and ponytails and no lipstick and drab and crummy.
What?
Now something is beginning to happen.
It wasn't quite that bad, but we were mostly concerned with not being consumers then.
Yes, I know. Now I see it beginning to happen. Timothy here, instead of wearing his old, whatever it was that he used to wear, has now got a white tunic on with gold and colorful gimp on it.
Gimp?
Yes. And it's very beautiful. And he's wearing a necklace and all that kind of thing. And color is at last coming into the scene.
Well, okay. Well, let's get
going back before the
practical.
Roundheads and before Cromwell.
Yes, it is.
Let's get practical here. I think we're all concerned about the increasing number of people who are dropping out and wondering where to go from there. Now, let's come up with some practical suggestions which we might hope could unfold in the next few months. And
Okay, there's three categories: wilderness, rural, and urban.
Yeah.
Like there's going to be bush people, farm people, and city people. Bush tribes, farm tribes, and city tribes.
Beautiful. That makes immediate sense to myself.
Let me throw in.
How about beach people?
The word is evil and technology. Somehow they come together. And where there's an increase in technology and technological facility, there's an increase in what we usually call human evil.
I wouldn't agree with that, no. No, there's all kinds of non-evil technologies.
I'd like to ask for clarification about something that...
No, like Flint, Neolithic obsidian flaking is technology.
But in our advanced stage, it produces evil.
Yes, but what you mean, I think, is this, that when you go back to the great myths about the origin of evil, actually the Hebrew words which say good and evil, as the knowledge of good and evil being the result of eating the fruit of the tree of knowledge, these words mean advantageous and disadvantageous, and they're words connected with technical skills. And the whole idea is this, which you find reflected in the Taoist philosophy, that the moment you start interfering in the course of nature with a mind that is centered and one-pointed and analyzes everything and breaks it down into bits, the moment you do that, you lose contact with your original know-how, by means of which you now color your eyes and breathe and beat your heart. And for thousands of years, mankind has lost touch with his original intelligence. And he has been absolutely fascinated by this kind of political godlike controlling intelligence where they can go and analyze things all over the place. And he has forgotten to trust his own organism. Now, the whole thing that everything is coming to be realized today, not only through people who take psychedelics, but also through many scientists, they're realizing that this linear kind of intelligence cannot keep up with the course of nature. It can only solve trivial problems when the big problems happen too fast to be thought about in that way. And so those of us who are in some way or other, through psychedelics, through meditation, through what have you, are getting back to being able to trust our original intelligence, are suggesting an entirely new course for the development of civilization.
Well, it happens that civilization develops with the emergence of specialization in labor.
Yes.
And the emergence of a class structure. A class structure can't survive or can't put across its principle and expect people to accept it if they believe in themselves. If they believe individually, one by one, that they are in some way godlike or Buddha-like or potentially Illuminati. So that it's almost ingrained in civilization. And Freud said this, civilization as a neurosis, that part of the nature of civilization is that it must put down the potential of every individual development. And this is the difference between that kind of society which we call civilized and that much more ancient kind of society which is still viable and still survives, which we call primitive, in which everybody is potentially a chief, and which everybody, like among the Comanche or the Sioux, everybody in the whole culture was expected to go out and have a vision at one time in his life. In other words, to leave the society, to have some transcendental experience, to have a song and a totem come to him, which he need tell no one ever, and then come back and live with this double knowledge in society.
In other words, through having had his own isolation, his own loneliness, and his own vision, he knows that the game rules of society are fundamentally an illusion.
And then the society not only permits that, the society is built on
that, right.
That everybody has one side of his nature which has been out of it.
That society is strong and viable, which recognizes its own provisionality.
And no one who ever came in contact with the Plains Indians didn't think they were men.
Didn't think what?
Right.
They were men.
They were men.
Yeah.
Every record of American Indians, from the cavalry, the pioneers, the missionaries, the Spaniards, says every one of these people was men. In fact, I was reading something just the other day talking about the Yurok Indians, an early explorer up there, comment on their fantastic self-confidence. Said every Indian has this fantastic self-confidence. And they laugh at me, he said. They laugh at me and they say, "Aren't you sorry you're not an Indian?" Poor wretched Indians, this fellow said. Well, that is because every one of them has gone out and had this vision experience, has been completely alone with himself and face-to-face with himself, and has contacted powers outside of anything the society could give him. And society expects him to contact powers outside of society in those cultures.
Yes, every healthy culture does. Every healthy culture provides for there being non-joiners, sannyasi, hermits,
This is the next step.
Every healthy society has to tolerate this.
See, a society like the Comanche or the Sioux demands that everybody go out there and have this vision, and incorporates it and ritualizes it within the culture. Then a society like India, a step more civilized, permits some individuals to have these visions, but doesn't demand it of everyone.
We have to wonder why some people are more ready to drop out than others. It may be explained by theory of reincarnation. The people that don't want to drop out, can't conceive of living on this planet outside of the prop television studio, are just unlucky enough to have been born into this sort of thing, maybe the first or second time. They're still entranced by all of the man-made props. But there's no question that we should. I think we should consider how more and more people who are ready to drop out.
If there is a value in being a dropout, that is to say, being an outsider, you can only appreciate and realize this value if there are, in contrast with you, insiders and squares. The two are mutually supportive.
Yeah, if someone says to me, I just can't conceive of dropping out, I can say, well, you're having fun with this go-round in? Fine. I'm sure we've all done that many times in the past.
But the two groups, the insiders and the outsiders.
I still think it's too vague because it doesn't say drop out of what precisely. And what everybody's dealing with is people. It's not dealing with institutions, also dealing with them, but also dealing with people working within them, including the police.
Like you have to be able to, if you're going to talk this way, you have to be able to specifically say to someone in Wichita, Kansas, who says, I'm going to drop out.
Yeah.
What do you advise? How do you advise me to stay living around here in this area, which I like?
Let's be less historical now for a while. Let's be very practical about ways in which people who want to find the tribal way...
Well, this is what I've been telling to kids all over Michigan and Kansas. For example, I've had this question. I tell them, first of all, do you want to live here or do you want to go someplace else?
Good.
All right, they say, I want to stay around where I am. I say, okay, get in touch with the Indian culture here. Find out what was here before. Find out what the mythologies were. Find out what the local deities were. Mm-hmm. You can get all of this out of books. Go and look at your local archaeological sites.
Beautiful.
Pay a reverent visit to the local American Indian tombs and also the tombs of the early settlers. Find out what your original ecology was. Is it short grass prairie? Is it long grass prairie here? Go out and live on the land for a while. Set up a tent and camp out and watch the clouds and watch the water and watch the land and get a sense of what the climate is here. Because since you've been living in a house all your life, you probably don't know what the climate is.
Beautiful.
Yeah. Then decide how you want to make your living here. Do you want to be a farmer or do you want to be a hunter and food gatherer? You start from the ground up. And you can do it in any part of this country today, cities and all.
You
but for this continent, I take it back to the Indians.
Yeah, I agree with you completely.
Find out what the Indians were up to in your own area, whether it's Utah or Kansas.
That is a stroke of cellular revelation and genius, Gary. That's one of the wisest things I've heard anyone say in years. That's exactly how it should be done. I do see the need for transitions, though, and you say that there will be city people as well as country people and mountain people. I would suggest that for the next year or two or three, which are going to be nervous, transitional, mutational years, which things are going to happen very fast, by the way, that the transition could be facilitated if every city set up little meditation rooms and little shrine rooms where the people in transition dropping out can meet and meditate together. It is already happening at the Psychedelic Shop. It's happening in New York. I see no reason, though, why there shouldn't be 10 or 15 or 20 such places in San Francisco.
They're already on it.
Yeah, I know. But let's encourage that. I was just in Seattle, and I was urging the people there. Hundreds of them crowd into coffee shops, and this beautiful energy. They are liberated people, these kids, but they don't know where to go. And they just need, they don't need leadership, but they need, I think, a variety of suggestions from people who have thought about this, giving them the options to move in any
Well, I'd like to see the
different. Just a minute.
Yeah.
The different meditation rooms can have different styles. One can be Zen, one can be macrobiotic, one can be bhakti chanting, one can be rock and roll psychedelic, one can be lights. If we learn anything from ourselves, we learn that God delights in variety. they've got to meet each other and form these tribal, I would say, reincarnation groups, because the people who are ready to drop out and turn on will come to these centers, and they'll wander around and they'll form natural cellular groups, and they will leave the city. I would suggest as practical step number 2 that the human being in San Francisco be a model. We've all tried different models of summer schools and institutes and research projects and individual dropouts and psychedelic celebrations and so forth, and the Avalon and Fillmore and so forth. I would say that the human being was a tremendously important thing in the consciousness of San Francisco. Now, if that thing could happen in every large city in the country, and again, the beautiful thing about the being was it had no leadership. It had no big financing. It would just grow automatically.
No, but we're accused of being leaders. What were we doing up on that platform?
That's a charge that doesn't bother me at all.
There were 50 people up on that platform, and every one of them was a leader. So were the people in the audience. The reason was that nobody came out and said, we are the leaders.
No, nobody said
because
that.
that's bullshit.
Nobody claims to be a leader, but I remember sitting up there.
They can say, every time they say you're a leader, you point to Snyder.
Well, now look here.
Yeah.
You see?
But I do that anyway.
I know. But the press has a leadership complex.
Yeah, they keep calling Gary my disciple.
Oh, they want to find ringleaders.
Can I have you blowing his conch horn?
One of the 4 philosophical questions is who started it. And whenever the police or the press barge into a situation, they want to know who started it.
Right.
In other words, because they're still thinking about God and the first cause, and they want to know who started, who's in charge, and so on.
Who gets the credit, who gets the blame.
Let's get back to a fundamental thing. I think that what you are really, all of you, are having the courage to say is that the absolutely primary thing is that there be a change of consciousness in the individual, that he escape from the hallucination that he is a separate ego in an alien universe, and that we all come to realize primarily that each one of us is the whole works. That each one of us is what is real and has been real for always and always and always and will ever be. And although the time language may not be appropriate here, but nevertheless, we are that. And to the extent that it can be spread around, that's what you and I are. And we lose our anxieties and we lose our terror of death and our terror of unimportance and all that kind of thing. That this is the absolutely essential ingredient, which if we get hold of that point, all the rest will be added unto you, in the sense of seek you first the kingdom of God and all these things shall be added to you.
Right.
Isn't that what you're saying? I mean, isn't that absolutely basic? That even if this is only realized in a statistical minority, nevertheless, it's immensely powerful.
It affects consciousness.
It affects everybody.
Yeah. I would add to practical step number 2 that more celebrations be set up all over or more beings.
The practical, it just occurred to me, the practical details. The model of it is something like the Mahalila. Like you're asking, how is it going to work? Well, now, the Mahalila is a group of about 3 different families who have sort of pooled their resources, none of which are very great. But they have decided to play together and to work together and to take care of each other. And that means like all of them are doing have ways of getting a small amount of bread, which they share. And other people contribute a little money when it comes in. And then they work together on creative projects, like they're working together on a light show right now for a poetry reading that we're going to give. And they consider themselves a kind of extended family or clan. And like when they went to the Bean, they had a banner which said Mahalila, like that was their clan banner.
I saw that, yeah.
Yeah.
That's the model. That's the model.
And the model for the time is that breaking out of the smaller family organization, we work in slightly larger structures, like clan structures, in which people do work at various jobs and bring in whatever bread they can from various jobs, but they're willing to pool it and share it, and they learn how to work and play together. And then they relate that to a larger sense of the tribe, which is also loose. But for the time being, everybody has to be able from time to time to do some little job. But the reference is, the thing that makes it different is that you don't bring it home to a very tight individual or one monogamous family unit, but you bring it home to a slightly larger unit where the sharing is greater. I think that's where it starts.
Oh, I think that's very important.
Extended family is the key.
The extended family, I think, is where it starts. And my own particular hobby horse on this is that the extended family leads to matrilineal descent. And when we get matrilineal descent, then we'll have group marriage. And when we have group marriage, we'll have the economy licked. Because with the group marriage, capitalism is doomed, and civilization goes out.
Practical step number 3, which I would like to see.
Go on, Tim.
Is
You really are up to the occasion. You're really up to the occasion. That's practical step number 3.
I think we should encourage extended families everywhere.
Yeah.
Well, it's very practical to encourage extended families because the present model of the family is a hopeless breakdown. Because, first of all, the family is an agrarian culture institution, which is not suited to an urban culture, because all the family consists in is a dormitory where a wife and children are located, and a husband engages in a mysterious activity in an office or a factory, in which neither the wife nor the children have any part nor interest, save that he bring home an abstraction called money, and where there are lots of pretty secretaries in the scene in which he actually works, exactly. And so they have no relation whatsoever to what he does. And furthermore, the awful thing about the family as it exists at the moment is that the husband and the wife both feel guilty about not bringing up their children properly. And therefore they live for their children instead of living out their own lives and doing their own interesting work, in which the children would automatically become interested as participants and watchers on the side. As it is, they're doing everything they say. We live, we work, we earn our money for you, darlings. And these poor darlings feel all this thing thrown at them and they don't want to do with it. And then they are sent away to school, shrilled off to school, as Dylan Thomas put it, and to be educated for everything and nothing.
by strangers
By strangers.
who are dubious.
Who will teach them all sorts of
Moral,
purely...
spiritual, intellectual, and sexual characteristics.
Right. Abstract formulations and things they'll learn, and the family has no reality. And the greatest institution today in the American family is the babysitter. Someone to just take the children out of our consciousness while we enjoy ourselves.
And the death sitter to take the old people out of it.
And the death sitter, exactly.
And even death has been taken from the people.
Yes.
Everything has.
The courtesy of the mortician. Yes.
A good death.
A good death is no longer possible, practically. So,
I have a 4-stage thing. American Indian technologies, practical now, meditation centers, group marriage, and periodical gatherings of the tribes.
I don't agree with group marriage. We are a tribal people. You cannot have infidelity in a tribe. Infidelity, sexual freedom,
infidelity is defined as
anonymous,
right outside the
impersonal,
marriage.
anthill sexuality. Every
No,
woman.
wait a minute. That's what
let
I
me
said.
finish. Every woman is all woman. If you can't find all women in one woman, it's your problem.
I do think it's possible for some of us to have found all women in one woman.
I want to get back at something. Let me get something with him. Infidelity means denying your commitments. Now, if your commitments are within a group marriage, then fidelity is being true within your group marriage. And infidelity is being untrue or dishonest outside of that. Now, there are some cultures in South America in which all forms of marriage are permitted. There are group marriages, polyandrous marriages, polygamous marriages, and monogamous marriages.
By group marriages, just a moment, let's get a question of definition here.
Okay, group marriage is where a number of people, as a group, whatever the number is, announce, a marriage is a social announcement of commitment.
Yeah.
Announce that we will be responsible for the children we produce and for each other.
So in other words, all males and all females in this group can be in mutual intercourse with each other.
Yeah.
But not outside the group.
But not outside the group.
Outside the group.
Well, you make rules to take care of that. You got to bring in.
I'm not making rules. I'm just telling you what the anthropological precedences are for these things.
Yes.
It happens in this South American culture that the majority of the marriages are monogamous. But it also happens that there are some polyandrous, some polygamous, and a few group ones. And I think that that what we can allow is people to combine in whatever combinations they wish.
Oh, I certainly would agree with that.
When people, just as Lao Tzu said, when the great Tao lost, there came talk of duty to man and right conduct. And so when the essential idea of love is lost, there comes talk of fidelity. That actually, the only possible basis for two beings, male and female, to relate to each other is to grant each other total freedom. And say, I don't put any bonds on you, you don't put any bonds on me, because I want you, I love you the way you are. And I want you to be that. The minute you start making contracts and bonds and signing on the dotted line, you are wrecking the whole relationship. And you just have to trust to the fact that human beings should be legally allowed to trust each other and to enter into a fellowship that does not involve a contractual arrangement.
I think we all agree with that.
You know, because if you don't do that, you'll kill it.
In primitive cultures, marriage is not a contractual arrangement. But what it is it's a public announcement.
Yes.
What it amounts to. It's a relationship which is made public.
What was your fourth point, Gary?
Occasional gatherings of the tribe. Tribes. That wasn't a point, it was an activity.
Well, it seems to me then...
So you say rather than group marriage, extended families. Extended cooperation structures, in other words. American Indian technologies, meditation centers, extended cooperative clan type or extended family type structures with much more permissiveness in the nature of the family structure than is permitted, say, in Judeo-Christian tradition, and gatherings of the larger tribes periodically.
Well, practical suggestion number 6. I suggest that we have meetings in cities April 21st. I suggest we have, say, national meetings, or one national meeting perhaps June 21st, and that we start moving through Europe to the east so that we would, in September 21st, be on the door between India and China, with as many Indians or Westerners or people that we picked up on the way. I think that's the quickest way to end racial prejudice in the war in Vietnam.
Some cultures aren't going to understand this yet.
And I don't think you get more than 20,000 people. And that was done anyway, all the way around there. And that was done anyway by Shankar Dale, and he got stopped at the border of Burma.
But you know...
let him through, but the Chinese wouldn't let him through, and the Indians were upset.
There's a social and historical problem here. One is that California's the only place that's ready for this problem.
Right. San Francisco is the place,
yeah. Like you couldn't do this in Japan.
Well, it's already done that. Now let's move it out.
No, but you can't do it yet.
It hasn't done it yet.
A great percentage of the world is going to have to move through the drama of Western culture and technology in some accelerated way before they're ready for this. Like America is the only culture that's in which a number of people have seen through it and are able to go beyond it. Japan isn't ready to, for example. It would be incredibly eccentric to them. Nobody's ready to try that.
I question that. I think that if you look at the spread of American ideology, France is just now starting its super drugstores. You must not fail to realize the authentic, deep American spirit behind this. And I think that if it's taken 15 years for France to accept the super drugstore, why not 6 months to accept the being in San Francisco?
Well, because as any
the way they spread drugs, or Pepsi-Cola or Coca-Cola, was they when Coca-Cola first showed up in the Grand Canal in Venice, or Coca-Cola first showed up in Pakistan, it was considered eccentric. But if Pepsi-Cola can do it, the energy and the cellular collectivity, which started here, can move much more quickly because it's talking to deeper things in the human being than Pepsi-Cola. I think this thing should start moving.
Are so many of these people in Africa and Asia are caught up in the drama of progress.
They want nothing more than to come to America and get a large apartment, and a large car, and a big home.
This is part of the paradox.
We can tell them. I feel the same way about the problem with the American Negro. Does he have to become a middle-class white before he can then go on and leave that? I don't think we have to go through these historical periods. I think it's possible to move it faster.
Well, I hope it's possible to accelerate it.
And
but you can't take it around the world this year or next year. Yeah. Like the drama is changing. Yeah. Like what people are interested in is not things, it's states of mind. You know, like that's the cultural shift that's taking place.
No, this is a very important statement. This.
Really?
Yes. Yeah.
We've turned a corner. It's a bigger corner than the Reformation, probably.
Yes.
It's a corner of on the order of the change between Paleolithic and Neolithic. And it's like one of the 3 or 4 major turns in the history of man, not just culture, but man.
Right. Now, an enormous number of people go into the heart of New York every day for no other reason than to shop. There are, to a large extent, frustrated women living in these wretched dormitories. And their husbands are working, and the women go in order to get some kind of sense of existence, of being, by buying things. Now, supposing it happens that instead of that, they change their state of mind.
Right.
Instead of going out, and buying something, they change their state of mind sitting where they are in the first place. Then Bonwit Teller, everything in the middle of town simply collapses. Lord and Taylor, so on. There's no more reason for existence. It's like Market Street in San Francisco, where everything is slowly falling apart because it's so ridiculous to park there, and you can't get at the place anyhow.
So where are people going to buy their Ewer tape machines and their Nagras?
Suppose they don't want them.
Pardon me?
Suppose they don't want them.
Well, we all have them.
We'll buy them from Japan.
We're transitional figures.
Suppose it's decentralized.
Yeah.
No, like we don't need them. Like I would be happy to hear Larry Bird sing his corn dance and his buffalo dance, and I don't want to tape it. I'll hear it, and that's in my mind for the rest of my life.
Right.
Well, the problem here is that there's a withering away of the state.
Yeah.
But advanced electronics.
It's called let the state disintegrate.
Well,
advanced technology such as we're talking about, unless you can magically transform it into some Buckminster Fuller body, which each individual tribe can operate and create whatever it needs. Other than that, there's the technology as we know it now, and
I think that
which
the
is
technology,
like a large electronic network.
I think that the technology withers away as people learn to do it themselves. Like it's more interesting to do it yourself at home with your friends. Like sit around and blow the buffalo horn and blow the conch horn and then turn on the television.
And then turn on the television.
And not turn on the television.
But that was like conditions that were possible for when the continent held 50 million Indians.
Yeah.
But now the continent holds a great many more.
And that's still what's most interesting.
But
to do what you can do yourself.
The whole problem is reproduction. It's not only the reproduction of the species in a sex phase,
Well, that's arbitrary.
but reproduction as we are now reproducing what we are saying on tape. Because if, supposing this conversation were very turned on and far out, I don't know whether it is or not, people would say, oh, what a pity that didn't get recorded.
Somebody
See, because it didn't really happen unless it was recorded. And increasingly, we're developing all kinds of systems for verifying reality by echoing it.
Well, trained minds remember, and the words of the Buddha were all remembered.
Yeah,
oral tradition.
And the words of the Buddha came down for 200 years before anybody put it in writing, because people were paying attention to what he said.
And only then did they start embellishing it.
Yeah.
But Krishnamurti would argue that remembering it was already a fallacy.
Well, he's very pure.
Tim, Alan said he was a bridge builder. He wanted to be a bridge builder. Now, that stalled car. If we've all got to be bridge builders in one sense, I think, perhaps. He was stalled in Haight-Ashbury amongst the acid heads, and no one gave him a push. If we're telling the kids they're doing something holy, they have to a certain extent, we have to be a little bit holy. And holiness is giving, and we have to learn to give. The diggers have said that since the being on January the 14th, thousands and thousands of kids who don't really know where they're at, but are attracted because they want to know where they're at, have come to the city. But they come to the city and they don't quite know whether to be defiant. They don't know. They don't know what to be. And unless they can become bridges for themselves, each person a bridge for themselves, so they can show that what they have got is something giving, the message doesn't get across. The car should be pushed.
Exactly. It's not enough to tell them that what they're doing by dropping out is right.
Yeah, that's the point I'm trying to get at.
Yes,
yeah.
well, that's very important. It's the point.
We've got to become saints.
Well, we at least have to
which
be
is
good.
not even a silly thing to say.
Right. It's not.
Exactly. It's exactly it. They've got to be told that they're pursuing the holiest road
But they
of
have
all.
to understand what that means.
Well, there should be, again, if we have these meditation centers in all cities, there would be centers where the Gita would be read, where the ancient sutras would be read, where they would be reminded. This is not teaching.
What we need is personal example all over the place.
Right,
really.
but I would suggest that in these meditation centers there be some program of readings, not in the sense of educating or teaching facts, but just reminding young people and any person who drops out and turns on that they are part of an ancient profession, the only holy profession. The profession has kept the flame going, and it certainly should express itself in pushing that Mercedes.
Right.
Do you think it's practical
this
to
is-
try
well-
to get?
Pardon?
Do you think it's practical to try to get some sort of meditation in the public schools?
No, drop out of the public schools. The public schools cannot be compromised with.
No.
That's what you could turn on a bunch of college kids that would give you
No.
computers and get anywhere that way.
Why say you shouldn't compromise with the public schools if you're going to compromise with technology?
We're not compromising with IBM or with General Electric. We're simply saying, as Gary has said, that part of man's karmic heritage is the ability to do incredible things with his hands and his analytic mind. But they should be holy things.
Yeah, it's a question of right occupation and
Yes.
right conduct. It's not like that technology is bad or that schools are bad.
Well, now look here. What are we saying when we say now something is holy? That means you should take a different attitude to what you're doing than if you were, for example, doing it for kicks. Now, there's a curious thing here. I have noticed with Allen Ginsberg that when he chants Hindu sutras, he doesn't do it in a pious way.
Right.
There's a joyousness and there's a feeling of delight to doing this chant that has more
Wiggling
zip to it than anything
jumping.
we knew in the past as being holy. Now, when you was doing something holy in the past, that you had to put on a solemn expression of saying, we are doing this, but it hurts, but it's good for us. He's not doing that when he chants that. He's not saying it hurts and therefore it's good for me. He's saying it's good for me because I enjoy it. It's gorgeous. I'm going right in there and I'm going to say all these Om Hari Rama Krishna Rama Hari Ram Hari, etc. You see?
He's turning himself on.
And I told
love and love is joy.
right, and I told some nuns a little while ago where the Mother Superior came and they were all talking about the reform of the liturgy and how the Catholic Church has gotten itself in a mess by translating the Latin liturgy into terrible English, and all the magic has gone out of it. And I said, you should come and listen to Allen Ginsberg chant the sutras because then you'd know how to celebrate Mass properly. So, when we're talking about something being holy, we've got to be very careful.
Yeah.
We're saying now, Gary, you were saying, all right, people have got to be saints. And you said, well, that's not just a joke to say this. But it's got to be saints in an entirely new sense. Not this masochistic kind of sainthood, whereby I am holy because I hurt.
Yeah.
And the amount of personal hurt that I've piled up is the measure of my holiness.
Well, that's the Judeo-Christian
That's
day,
the-
which says
that's-
that the cross is at the center of the universe.
Well, no, what about India, where we do have a giant psychedelic community and many tribal groups and tribal gatherings which serve as the model for our own? What kind of material system is that? And would that be acceptable to Mario Savia?
Sure, it's acceptable.
So what do you think of Swami Bhaktivedanta's plea for the acceptance of Krishna in every direction?
Well, it's a lovely, positive thing to say Krishna.
Yeah.
You know, like Krishna it's a beautiful mythology and it's a beautiful practice.
Should be encouraged.
Yeah.
He feels it's the one uniting thing. He
Uh,
feels a monopolistic
Well, the one thing
unitary
is,
theme about that.
we agree
Well,
on
I
that.
tell you, I think why he feels this is that it is the mantrams, the images of Krishna have in this culture no foul associations.
Yeah.
The word God is contaminated. So Tillich would say the ground of being instead of God. Anything except saying God. The word get down on your knees and be humble before your heavenly Father. That gives everybody the creeps. It's just awful to say something like that, you see, because all these Christian images have horrible associations attached to them. Whereas when somebody comes in from the Orient with a new religion, which hasn't got any of these associations in our minds, all the words are new, all the rites are new, and yet somehow it has feeling in it. And we can get with that, you see, and we can dig that. And it can do something for us that it can't do in Japan. For example, in Japan, when young people hear the Buddhist sutra chanted, they think, oh, let's hear that thing, because they associate all that with fogeyism. Here in the Buddhist churches, in the Niseis, they can't stand it when the priests chant the sutras in Sino-Japanese language for the oldsters. They want to hear, Buddha loves me, this I know, for the sutra tells me so. You know, they want to look as much as they can like Protestants, because that's exotic to them, you see.
We're writing our new myth, and...
yes. But we all
we have to, in our sessions, relive the Christ thing, the Buddha thing, the Krishna thing, but we're creating a new myth.
Right, you are, Tim.
And we won't have saints.
But we do. We do it in our own way. Everybody on his own discovers the immemorial truth which has been handed down, and that's the only way you can get it, because you can't follow the truth as other people have taught it. You can't imitate it. You can only discover it out of your own thing, and by doing your own stuff, you keep repeating the eternal pattern. And this probably is the sort of situation we have.
Well, you think because an egg was thrown at me at Santa Monica...
Oh, I'm not just talking of that egg. I'm talking of what was thrown at you in Laredo.
That worries me not at all.
No, well, that's as it should be.
In game activity, when I wander into the television studio and try to do things, if I can bat 50%, 500%, it's incredible. Half the things I've done are wrong, mistakes. I'm sorry I did them.
Well,
the moratorium on pot and LSD a year ago was ridiculous. I shouldn't have done that.
No, I know. Well, we all make fools of ourselves occasionally. Good God.
I make a blunder. At least 1 or 2 times I come to bat. These celebrations were a mistake. The first 4 were great. They were spontaneous religious outbursts. But then it became a success. And people said, yes, you got to keep them going. You got to take it around the country and so forth. That was a mistake. It was a mistake to make it commercial, a mistake to have it in a theater, a mistake to charge admission, a mistake to keep a static form going. And we've dropped out of it.
Well, what are you going to do with the celebration?
It was beautiful, though. The first 4 celebrations were
have you any way of finding a ritual for celebration, which or are you making use of the established rituals or the historical knowledge that's been coming out lately on ritual to make a celebration which is like really communal and beautiful?
Or do you want to? In San Francisco was
I think that
the high point.
Yes.
And every time I've talked since that being, I said, listen, we're dropping out of the theater celebrations. Goodbye, show business.
Real. Yeah. Robert Oppenheimer is reported to have said quite recently that obviously the world is going to hell. And the only way that it could be stopped was not to try to prevent it from happening.
That's pretty far out.
Yeah, in other words, when there is a game going on,
the atomic bomb.
When there is a game going on that's on a collision course, and that this game obviously is going to lead to total destruction, the only way of getting people out of a bad game is to indicate that the game is no longer interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Right. See, we've left this game, and it bores us. And we've got something going on over here, which is where it's at, you know?
That's the point.
And it's where it's at, and everybody who's playing this game, you know, they're in that plane going, on the mark, you know? And suddenly they realize that that's not where it's at. Something people are doing over on the other side. And they go, what's going on there? Let's go out to the Haight-Ashbury and see what's happening over there, because maybe something's happening.
Instead of, really, Tim, instead of the emphasis on the dropping out, I think in a sense it's more to the point to say there's something else going on.
Right. Yeah. It doesn't sound alliteratively correct, though.
Oh.
Tune in, turn on, there's something else going on. He's got to, unless his language is interpreted in a way which is understandable and acceptable.
Well, that's a matter of finding a euphonious formula.
If it had been
It doesn't tune in, so say that.
turn on, drop out, tune in.
Well, he really means drop out, he keeps saying, and then finally we just bring the transistors back in all the time.
People like Mario Savio are offended by the word drop out because it offends the bodhisattva feeling of compassion.
Yeah,
They want to
very
express
definitely.
compassion.
And because it's negative rather than positive in its overtones, as the last of the three. The last of the three should be.
Well, now look here, Tim. At that thing in Santa Monica, you made 2 points. One was, A, you can't stay high all the time. Because when you finally come down from the high, you realize that the ordinary state of consciousness is one with the high state. This, to me, has been the most fantastic thing in all my LSD experiences, that the moment I come down is the critical moment of the whole experience. I suddenly realize that this everyday world around me is exactly the same thing as the world of the beatific vision.
Right.
Now, then, how do you integrate that realization with the dropout?
All right, we'll change the slogan. See, I'm completely with Mark McLuhan. Everything I say is just a probe. I'm trying to get people to...
Yes, I get that. I do the same thing.
Seattle, we were banned from Seattle, and I went up there and talked about menopausal mentality and drop out, and all the cocktail parties, and what does it mean, drop out? Menopausal mentality, what does it mean, drop out? I would agree to change the slogan to drop out, turn on, drop in.
You've been listening to Alan Watts, Gary Snyder, Allen Ginsberg, Tim Leary, and Alan Cohen in a discussion called Changes, the Houseboat Summit, recorded in 1967 on the ferryboat Vallejo, my father's home in Sausalito, California. This podcast was produced in conjunction with the Ram Dass Be Here Now podcast network. Our theme music is by Zakir Hussain from The Rhythm Experience. And for further information on the recordings of Alan Watts, please visit alanwatts.org. Again, that's alanwatts.org. And thank you for listening today.
You see, we spend most of our lives trying to get money, but very few ever stop to ask why they want it in the first place. We chase money as though it's oxygen, as though without it, we cannot live, breathe, or be happy. But have you noticed that the more desperate you are for it, the more it seems to run away? And when you finally stop running, when you stop chasing, it often seems to find its way to you effortlessly, like a bird that lands quietly on your shoulder when you're still. It's quite a curious thing. You want money because you want freedom, but in the chase for money, you often lose the very freedom you were seeking. You become anxious, impatient, and trapped by your own desire. You become like a man digging for water in the desert who forgets that the oasis was already inside him. Now, I want to tell you a secret that life has been whispering to you all along. The money comes faster when you stop needing it to come. When you stop begging the universe with the vibration of lack and begin to live as though you already possess abundance, everything begins to flow differently. Because reality, my dear friend, is not responding to your words. It is responding to your state of being. When you say, I want more money, what you are really declaring is, I don't have enough. And that feeling, that inner frequency, is what the world mirrors back to you. The universe is not your servant. It is your reflection. And whatever you feel most strongly becomes the signal it sends right back. I remember once saying that desire is a contract you make with yourself to be unhappy until you get what you want. You see, that is the trap when you tie your joy, your sense of self, your peace of mind to the arrival of money. You postpone happiness indefinitely. You wait for the outside world to change before you permit yourself to feel whole inside. But reality does not work that way. Reality rearranges itself around the vibration you are embodying. Now, the moment you say, I will be happy when I have money, you are broadcasting to existence that you are not yet happy, and existence simply reflects that. It will keep giving you situations that confirm your belief. This is why people stay poor, not because of a lack of effort, but because of the emotional atmosphere they live in, the inner weather they keep repeating each day. But imagine for a moment if you reversed it. What if you decided to feel abundant before the money comes? What if you walked through life with the vibration of someone who already has more than enough? What if you practiced gratitude not as a trick to get something, but as a state of genuine recognition that life itself is already full? Here's the paradox. The moment you stop using gratitude to manipulate the future, it actually begins to change. When you are no longer thanking the universe because you want it to do something for you, and instead thank it because you realize it already has, you step into the creative flow that allows more to come easily. Most people think they must do something to attract abundance. But the real secret is not in the doing, it's in the being. When your inner world is aligned with wealth, when you think, feel, and act like a person who already has it, is inevitable that your outer world will rearrange to reflect that. Because what you truly are inside cannot help but radiate outward. Think of it this way. You do not get money by running after it, just as you do not catch your own shadow by chasing it. You align with the light, and the shadow follows naturally. Money is the same. It is the shadow of your inner vibration. It follows the light of your consciousness. And the brighter that light, the faster the shadow moves to you. You see, money is not a reward from life. It is an expression of energy, a symbol of exchange, an extension of flow. When you are in a state of openness, creativity, and service, when you are genuinely giving your energy to life in a joyful way, money flows naturally as part of that current. But when you contract, when you tighten up with fear or lack, you dam the river. You block the current that was trying to bring you more. And this is the great irony of abundance. The tighter you hold on to it, the less you have. The more you let go, the more you receive. When you understand this, you begin to see why some people seem to magnetize wealth effortlessly. It's not that they are more intelligent, or luckier, or blessed by fate. It's that they have stopped resisting life. They have stopped sending out signals of fear and scarcity. They are not trying to get, they are allowing themselves to be. Now, what does this mean in practical terms? It means that if you wish for money to come faster, you must stop worshipping it. You must stop seeing it as your savior. You must begin to see it for what it truly is, an echo of your inner abundance, a reflection of your relationship with yourself. Ask yourself, how do I feel when I think about money? If you feel tense, anxious, impatient, or guilty, those are the vibrations you are feeding into the field. That is the emotional music you are playing to the universe. And the universe always dances to your tune. If your song is one of desperation, it will send you experiences that match desperation. If your song is one of ease, gratitude, and joy, then it will send you experiences that match that too. So instead of asking, how can I get more money? Ask, how can I feel more abundant right now? Because that feeling is the real currency. Money follows the feeling, not the other way around. You don't wait for a heater to get warm before turning it on. You generate the warmth first. The same applies here. You don't wait for external wealth to create internal abundance. You create the inner abundance, and the external wealth appears as a consequence. Now, the modern mind finds this deeply uncomfortable because we've been conditioned to believe that hard work and struggle are the only valid ways to succeed. We are taught to grind, to compete, to strive. But the truth is, effort without alignment is wasted energy. You can row a boat tirelessly, but if it's facing the wrong direction, you'll never reach your destination. When you are aligned internally, when your thoughts, emotions, and actions are coherent, things begin to move swiftly, almost magically. Doors open without effort. Opportunities appear where none existed. People show up at the right moment. You call it coincidence, but it's simply coherence at work. The universe is a field of infinite intelligence, responding to frequency. Every thought, every emotion, every belief you hold emits a vibration. When your vibration says, I am abundant, the field mirrors it with situations that confirm that truth. But when your vibration says, I'm lacking, it reflects lack. You cannot deceive the universe. It doesn't listen to your words. It reads your energy. And so, money is not something you earn as much as something you allow. It comes through you, not to you. It flows through the channels of your belief, your gratitude, your openness, and your creativity. It comes faster when you stop pushing it away with resistance and begin to trust that it is part of the same flow that gives breath, sunlight, and life itself. When you truly grasp this, you'll understand why so many spiritual teachers speak about surrender not as a form of passivity, but as a deep act of trust. To surrender is not to sit and do nothing. It is to stop forcing things to happen. It is to stop resisting the natural rhythm of life. It is to know that you are already connected to everything you need, and that your only task is to align with it internally. You cannot attract abundance from a state of frustration. You cannot call in wealth from a vibration of need, because in that vibration, you are telling the universe that you are separate from abundance, and so you remain so. But when you relax, when you breathe deeply and truly feel that life itself supports you, money begins to flow toward you, not as a bribe, not as a prize, but as a natural expression of your trust. So, the doing that brings money faster is not doing in the conventional sense. It is not about hustling harder, or making more lists, or pushing yourself into exhaustion. It is the inner work, the aligning of your state with the energy of abundance. It's the silent practice of tuning your mind and emotions until they sing in harmony with prosperity. You don't need to manipulate the world. You need to harmonize with it. When you do, the world responds with synchronicity, grace, and ease. Now, let's talk about something even deeper, the energy behind the intention. Why do you want money? Truly? Most people say because I want to feel free or I want to feel safe. But freedom and safety are not things that come after money. They are the states that allow money to arrive. When you feel free now, the vibration of freedom attracts experiences that match it, including financial opportunities. When you feel safe now, the vibration of safety magnetizes circumstances that confirm your safety, including money. So you must become the thing you wish to attract long before it appears. This is the mystical law of resonance, the same law that governs sound, music, and even the orbits of planets. If you listen to an orchestra, you'll notice that every instrument plays in harmony when tuned to the same frequency. Life operates the same way. When you tune your consciousness to the frequency of wealth through gratitude, trust, and joy, everything around you begins to harmonize. People, events, and ideas tune themselves to your vibration, and suddenly, what once seemed impossible becomes effortless. But if your inner world is dissonant, if one part of you believes in abundance while another part clings to fear, you create interference. You send mixed signals to the field, and the universe does not know which one to reflect. That's why self-awareness is the foundation of manifestation. You must become aware of the stories you tell yourself about money, the fears you inherited, the limitations you absorbed, the beliefs that no longer serve you. Because your beliefs are not truths. They are choices you've repeated so often that they've hardened into reality. But the moment you see them clearly, they begin to dissolve, and in their place, new possibilities emerge. When you begin to observe your relationship with money without judgment, something remarkable happens. You start to see that the anxiety, the grasping, the need to control, none of it is truly about the money itself. It's about what you believe money will fix. Somewhere deep within, you've been taught that money is the bridge between where you are and the life you want. But the truth is much gentler, much more profound. The bridge is your consciousness itself. If your consciousness is rooted in fear, you could win the lottery tomorrow and still feel unsafe. You could have millions in your account and yet feel poor inside. You'd still check your balance, still worry about losing it, still carry that faint vibration of not enough. Because wealth is not the amount of money you have, it's the amount of peace you feel when you have it. So what truly brings the money faster? Paradoxically, it is the release of the need for it. It is the moment when you realize that money was never the goal. It was only the mirror reflecting how deeply you trust life. When you trust completely, you become like the ocean that never worries whether it will receive another wave. You simply exist in the rhythm of give and take, ebb and flow. Consider how nature operates. The tree doesn't demand sunlight. It allows the sun to reach it. The river doesn't force its current. It simply flows according to gravity. The flower doesn't chase the bee. It blooms. And the bee arrives naturally. Yet humans, with all their cleverness, have managed to complicate the very principle of abundance. We've turned life into a contest. And in that contest, we've forgotten how to receive. To receive is not an act of laziness. It is an act of openness. And that openness is born of trust. When you trust that life supports you, you are no longer trying to force things into existence. You become receptive to the infinite possibilities already surrounding you. You stop narrowing your vision to the single path you believe will make you rich, and instead begin to see the countless other ways abundance can reach you. I once said that the meaning of life is just to be alive. It is so plain and so obvious. Yet everyone rushes around in a panic, as though it were necessary to achieve something beyond that. This panic is the same one that makes you chase money. But if you pause, just pause and truly see where you are, you may notice that life is already taking care of you in thousands of invisible ways. The breath entering your lungs, the sunlight warming your skin, the way your body repairs itself without your command. These are all signs that abundance is already happening, here and now. When you feel that deeply, gratitude arises naturally, not as a mental exercise, but as a spontaneous recognition of how miraculous it all is. And in that recognition, your vibration shifts. The desperate current of I need softens into I am provided for. The clenched fist opens, and suddenly the river of prosperity can flow again. So, if you wish to make money come faster, stop thinking of it as something outside of yourself. Begin to treat every thought, every emotion, every action as a form of energetic currency. Ask yourself, what am I investing my energy in today? Are you spending it on worry, on comparison, on self-doubt? Or are you investing it in creativity and generosity and trust? Because whatever you give your attention to grows. Money follows energy, and energy follows attention. That is the secret that the mystics and the physicists both agree upon. You are not a victim of circumstance. You are a participant in creation. Now, let's explore a simple shift that can transform your relationship with money almost overnight. Instead of asking, how can I get more? Ask, how can I give more? Not give more out of guilt, but out of abundance. Not because you feel obligated, but because giving affirms that you have more than enough. When you give freely, whether it's your time, your kindness, your talent, or your resources, you are declaring to the universe, I am abundant. And the universe, always echoing your state, responds in kind. It cannot help but fill the space you have opened. You become a conduit rather than a container, and the flow accelerates through you. But remember, giving must come from authenticity, not performance. If you give with the hidden hope that it will make you rich, the vibration of need still dominates, and the current remains slow. But if you give because you truly feel rich already, that energy becomes magnetic. People, opportunities, and ideas are drawn to that field of genuine abundance. Have you noticed how easy it is to trust people who are at peace with themselves? You can feel it even before they speak. Their presence radiates calm, their words carry weight, and their actions flow effortlessly. That is what money responds to. It flows toward coherence, confidence, and ease. It avoids confusion, desperation, and fear. So, your task is not to convince money to come. It is to become the kind of person money enjoys being around. You do this through presence, through awareness, through the simple act of bringing yourself back again and again to the truth that everything you need is already here in potential form. When you act from that knowing, your energy field becomes clear. You stop vibrating in two directions at once. You stop saying, I believe I can be wealthy, while secretly fearing that you can't. You begin to live from the state of I already am. That's when the miracles begin, not because the universe suddenly starts paying attention to you, but because you finally start paying attention to the universe. Now, let me tell you a small story, one that carries within it the essence of this whole teaching. There was once a man who lived in a small village. He worked tirelessly every day, hoping to save enough to build a better life. He counted his coins carefully, feared spending them, and went to sleep each night worrying that they would vanish. One day, a wise traveler passed through the village and said to him, "Why do you worry so much? The field you work in is full of gold." The man laughed. "Nonsense," he said. "I've worked that field for 20 years. There's only dirt and sweat in it." The traveler smiled. "Look again," he said. "Not with your eyes, but with your heart." The man was puzzled, but that night he sat quietly under the stars, and for the first time in years, he stopped worrying. He felt the cool wind, the hum of crickets, the quiet pulse of life around him. Something inside him softened. And the next morning, when he returned to the field, he noticed things he'd never seen before: the richness of the soil, the patterns of light, the gentle rhythm of the earth. He began to work differently, no longer with tension, but with joy. And within a year, his crops multiplied beyond measure. He realized then that the field had always been full of gold. It was his own vision that had been poor. You see, wealth does not come from outside. It comes through perception. When your eyes change, your world changes. And so, perhaps the greatest practice for attracting money faster is not affirmations, not strategy, not even meditation in the usual sense. It is awareness. Awareness of your own inner dialogue, awareness of the stories you tell about scarcity and struggle. When you see them clearly, you stop feeding them with belief. And in that very moment, your vibration shifts. Some people ask, "But Alan, if I stop worrying, if I stop caring so much about money, won't I become lazy? Won't I stop trying?" To that I say, no, you will finally begin living. For what we call laziness is often just the absence of fear. When you stop working out of fear, you begin creating out of love. You become more efficient, more inspired, and far more magnetic. Because action born of joy is infinitely more powerful than action born of worry. So here's what I suggest. Begin every morning with a moment of quiet acknowledgement. Before you look at your phone, before you check your bank account, close your eyes and say softly to yourself, "I am supported by life. I am connected to abundance. I am already enough." Feel it not as a mantra to fix something, but as a truth that is already here. Let that feeling expand in your chest until it fills your body. Then go about your day as if this were true. Spend money with joy, not fear. Speak about your goals with ease, not anxiety. Notice the small gifts life brings: a kind word, a smile, a new idea, and treat them as signs that abundance is flowing. Because it is. You will find that when you stop chasing, things begin to chase you. The phone rings, opportunities appear, coincidences multiply. This is not superstition, it is physics. The vibration you emit shapes the field around you. And when that vibration says, "I already have," the universe replies, "Indeed you do." Understand, though, that this is not a one-time trick. It is a way of being. You must keep returning to it every time your old conditioning tries to pull you back into fear. Every time you notice yourself tightening, judging, or doubting, simply pause. Take a breath. Remember the truth. Money is not your source. Life is. And life is infinite. As this awareness deepens, something even more extraordinary begins to happen. You start to see that what you really desired was never the money itself. It was expansion, expression, and experience. Money was just one of the ways life could deliver that. Once you realize that, the universe becomes infinitely creative in how it supports you. Sometimes the abundance comes as money. Sometimes it comes as opportunity, love, or insight. But it always comes. And in that realization, you are free. Because when you are no longer dependent on one form of abundance, you open yourself to all of them. You stop being a beggar at the door of life and remember that you are, in fact, life itself, endless, expressive, abundant. So the money comes faster by doing this, by being what you seek. by letting go of the constant effort to acquire and instead embody the state of already having, by relaxing into the present moment and trusting that life is intelligent enough to arrange itself on your behalf. You don't attract wealth by chasing wealth. You attract it by living richly rich in thought, in gratitude, in giving, in trust. And when you live that way, the external wealth has no choice but to match it. Remember, life does not reward desperation, it mirrors vibration. So practice joy now. Practice generosity now. Practice the feeling of abundance now. And soon, you will find that the money was never late. It was simply waiting for you to arrive at the right frequency. Because in the end, abundance is not something you pursue, it is what you are. And when you realize that fully, you'll laugh, as I often do, at the cosmic joke of it all, that you were never trying to get money. You were only trying to remember that you already had everything you needed to let it flow.
You know, there's something deeply ironic about all this talk of living in the present moment. We're told constantly that the present is where peace lives, that now is all we have, that if we could just be here, fully here, all our suffering would dissolve. And yet, if you're honest with yourself, sometimes the present moment is the last place you want to be. Sometimes now is unbearable. Sometimes the present hurts so much that escape feels not like avoidance, but like survival. We've created this strange mythology around presence, haven't we? The idea that enlightened people, awakened people, conscious people, they simply rest in the now and everything is beautiful. They've transcended suffering by being present to what is. But what happens when what is painful? What happens when the present moment contains grief, or loneliness, or physical pain, or the sharp edge of anxiety that makes your chest tight and your breath shallow? Are you supposed to just be present with that, just accept it, just sit there in the fire and call it peace? Here's what nobody tells you about the present moment. It's not always pleasant. In fact, sometimes it's absolutely terrible. And all the spiritual teachings that tell you to be here now, they often skip over this inconvenient truth. They make it sound like presence is the solution to suffering, when sometimes presence is precisely what makes you aware of just how much you're suffering. When you're distracted, when you're lost in thought, when you're anywhere but here, you can avoid feeling what you're actually feeling. But when you come into the present moment, when you really land here, you have to feel everything, and sometimes everything hurts. Think about the times you most want to escape the present. When you're in physical pain, your mind automatically goes somewhere else. You think about when the pain will end. You remember times when you didn't hurt. You imagine a future where you're comfortable again. This is not weakness. This is your system trying to protect you from the full intensity of now. Or when you're heartbroken, when you've lost someone or something precious, the present moment contains that loss in its rawest form. So you think about the past, when they were still here. Or you think about the future, when maybe the pain will have dulled. Anything but staying with the actual feeling of absence right now. And here's where it gets tricky. Because you've been taught that this escape is the problem, you've learned that living in the past or future is what creates suffering. That if you could just be present, just accept what is, you'd be free. So now you're not just in pain, you're also judging yourself for trying to escape the pain. You're suffering, and then you're suffering about suffering. You hurt, and then you feel guilty for not being able to just be present with the hurt. You're anxious, and then you're anxious about being anxious, instead of peacefully accepting your anxiety. This creates a terrible double bind. The present moment hurts, but you're not supposed to try to escape it. You're supposed to be with it, accept it, allow it. But when you try to do that, when you force yourself to stay present with something that's genuinely unbearable, you're just creating another form of suffering. Now you're in pain, and you're also straining to accept the pain. You're anxious, and you're also efforting to be okay with the anxiety. The acceptance itself becomes a new kind of resistance. Let me tell you something that might surprise you. Sometimes the most compassionate thing you can do is leave the present moment. Sometimes escape is exactly what you need.
not as a permanent strategy, not as a way of life, but in acute moments of overwhelm, sometimes thinking about something else, going somewhere else in your mind, distracting yourself. This isn't spiritual failure. It's intelligent self-regulation. It's your system knowing that you can only handle so much intensity at once. But here's the paradox, and this is important. The reason the present moment can hurt so much is precisely because you're resisting it while simultaneously trying to be present with it. You're here, but you don't want to be here. You're feeling what you're feeling, but you wish you weren't feeling it. So you're split. Part of you is in the experience. Part of you is fighting the experience. And that fight is what makes it unbearable. The pain itself might be intense, but the struggle with the pain, that's what creates the real suffering. Think about physical pain for a moment. When you resist it, when you tense up around it, when you fight it, it intensifies. But when you breathe into it, when you soften around it, when you stop adding the layer of this shouldn't be happening, something shifts. The pain is still there, but it's not quite as overwhelming. You've stopped making it worse with your resistance.
Made with love.
And this is true for emotional pain too. The grief is there, the loneliness is there, the anxiety is there. But when you stop fighting with it, when you stop telling yourself it shouldn't be there, there's a kind of space that opens up around it. Now, I'm not saying this is easy. I'm not suggesting you can just decide to stop resisting and suddenly everything is fine. But what I am saying is that much of what makes the present moment unbearable is not the moment itself, but your relationship with the moment. The pain is one thing. Your insistence that the pain shouldn't be there, your judgment of yourself for being in pain, your desperate attempts to make it stop while simultaneously trying to accept it, that's another thing entirely. And that second thing, that's where most of the suffering lives. Here's another angle on this. We've been sold this idea that the present moment is always available, always accessible, always the answer. But the truth is, sometimes you don't have the capacity to be fully present. Sometimes you're too overwhelmed, too fragmented, too depleted. And that's okay. That's not a spiritual failing. That's just being human. You don't have infinite capacity for intensity. You have limits, real limits. And those limits are not something to transcend. They're something to respect. So when the present moment hurts too much, when being here is more than you can handle right now, you don't have to force yourself to stay. You can think about something else. You can plan for the future. You can remember better times. You can distract yourself with a book or a show or a conversation. And none of this means you're avoiding life or failing at presence. It means you're taking care of yourself in the only way available to you right now. It means you're being kind to yourself instead of forcing yourself to be some idealized version of spiritual maturity that can accept absolutely anything without flinching. But, and this is crucial, there's a difference between intelligent temporary escape and chronic avoidance. There's a difference between saying, this is too much right now, I need a break, and building your entire life around never feeling anything uncomfortable. The first is self-compassion. The second is a prison. Because here's the thing about always escaping the present moment. Eventually, you're not living your life anymore. You're living in your head, in your plans, in your memories, in your distractions. And life, actual life, is happening now. Not in some peaceful moment in the future when everything will be easier. Not in some remembered moment when things were better. Now, this, even when it hurts. So what do you do when the present moment hurts? What do you do when now is the last place you want to be, but you also know that escape isn't a long-term solution? Well, here's where we need to look more carefully at what we mean by the present moment. Because there are actually two different things we're talking about, and most people confuse them. There's the present moment as content, as what's happening. The pain, the emotion, the circumstance, the situation. This is what you're experiencing right now. And then there's the present moment as context,
as the awareness that's experiencing. The consciousness that knows the pain is there, the space in which the emotion arises, the witnessing that's aware of the situation. These are not the same thing. And this distinction, this is everything. When people say be in the present moment, they usually mean be aware of what's happening right now. Feel your feelings, notice your sensations, observe your thoughts. And this can be valuable, certainly. But when what's happening is painful, being present to the content of experience can be overwhelming. You're asking yourself to fully feel something that hurts. And if you're not ready for that, if you don't have the capacity for that intensity, forcing yourself to do it just creates more suffering. But there's another way to be present. You can be present as the awareness itself, not present to the pain, but present as the space in which pain appears. And this is completely different, because the space, the awareness, the consciousness that knows experience is happening, this doesn't hurt. This is never in pain. The pain happens in it, but it's not touched by the pain. It's like the sky and the weather. The storm happens in the sky, but the sky isn't stormy. The sky just is vast and open, allowing the storm to move through it. Now, I know this might sound abstract or philosophical, but it's actually the most practical thing in the world. When you're in intense pain and you try to be present with the pain, you're identifying with the content. You're becoming the pain. Of course, it's unbearable. But when you rest as awareness, when you recognize yourself as the space in which the pain appears, there's a kind of distance without dissociation. You're not avoiding the pain or pretending it's not there. You're fully aware of it. But you're aware of it from a place that's not caught in it. Think of it this way. Right now, you're aware that you're reading these words. But you're not the words. You're what's aware of the words. The words appear in your awareness, but your awareness is separate from the words. It's the same with pain, with emotion, with any difficult experience. The experience appears in your awareness, but you are not the experience. You are what's aware of the experience. And that awareness, that consciousness, it's always okay. It's never in crisis. It's never overwhelmed. It's always just here, spacious and present, allowing whatever appears to appear. This is the real meaning of being present when the present moment hurts. You're not forcing yourself to stay with unbearable content. You're resting as the context, as the awareness itself. And from that place, you can be with the pain without being destroyed by it. You can acknowledge the hurt without being consumed by it. You can let the grief move through without becoming the grief. But here's the paradox again. You can't force this. You can't will yourself to be awareness rather than content, because the one trying to force it is itself content, is itself thought, is itself part of what appears in awareness. So what do? You simply notice. You notice that there's pain. You notice that there's resistance to the pain. You notice that there's awareness of the pain and the resistance. And in that noticing, in that simple recognition that awareness is happening, you're already resting as awareness. You're already home. And from here, from this place of being the space rather than the content, something interesting happens with pain. It doesn't necessarily go away. The hurt doesn't magically disappear, but it becomes bearable. Because you're not fighting it anymore. You're not adding the layer of this shouldn't be happening, or I can't handle this, or I need this to stop right now. You're just letting it be what it is. And in that allowing, in that radical acceptance that comes not from effort but from recognition of what you are, the intensity softens. This is why meditation practices often work with pain. Not because they make you tough enough to endure anything, but because they show you that you're not what hurts. The body hurts. The emotions hurt. The thoughts hurt. But the awareness that knows the hurting, that's never hurt. It's untouchable. And you are that awareness. You've always been that awareness. You just forgot, got identified with the content, started believing you were the pain rather than the space in which pain appears.
Before we continue, many of you have been asking for something longer, something with actual practices you can use in daily life. So check out the 3-hour audiobook that takes everything we explore in these videos and gives you the tools to actually work with it. Because here's the thing, intellectual understanding without practical application just keeps you spinning in your head. You need both, the insight and the practice, the philosophy and the daily work that makes it real. This audiobook gives you that. 3 hours of deep wisdom with practices built in, so you're not just thinking differently, you're living differently. If you're serious about changing how you experience your life, the link is in the description below. Now, let's continue.
Now, let me be very clear about something. I'm not suggesting you should never try to change painful circumstances. If you're in a situation that's harmful, by all means, work to change it. If you're experiencing physical pain, seek treatment. If you're in emotional distress, get support. Being aware that you're not the pain doesn't mean you should be passive about reducing unnecessary suffering. But it does mean that while you're working to change what can be changed, you don't have to be destroyed by what is right now. And here's another crucial point. Sometimes the present moment hurts because you're holding on to something that needs to be released. A relationship that's ended but you're still clinging to. A version of yourself that no longer fits but you're trying to maintain. A dream that's died but you won't let it go. The present moment contains the reality of loss, of change, of things being different than you wanted them to be. And that hurts. But the hurt is intensified by your grip, by your refusal to let what's gone be gone. When you rest as awareness, when you stop identifying with the one who lost something and recognize yourself as the space in which loss appears, something shifts. You can feel the grief without becoming the grief. You can acknowledge the loss without being defined by the loss. And in that acknowledgement, in that allowing, there's a natural release. Not because you're trying to let go, but because you're no longer holding on. You're just here, aware, present, allowing what is to be what is. This is the deepest teaching about when the present moment hurts. The hurt is real. Don't deny it. Don't spiritually bypass it. Don't pretend it's not there. But you don't have to be reduced to the hurt. You don't have to become the hurt. You can be the space in which hurt appears and moves and eventually passes. Because everything that appears in awareness eventually passes. Thoughts come and go. Emotions arise and dissolve. Sensations intensify and fade. Everything that has a beginning has an ending. Everything except awareness itself. That remains. That's constant. That's what you are. So when the present moment hurts, you have choices. You can temporarily escape into thought, into distraction, into whatever helps you regulate. And sometimes that's exactly right. You can work to change the circumstances that are causing pain. And sometimes that's possible and necessary. But ultimately, you can also rest as what you are, as awareness itself, as the space that's never in crisis, even when crisis appears in it. And from that place, you can be present with absolutely anything. Not because you're strong enough to endure it, but because you recognize you're not what's being endured. You're what endures. You're what remains. You're what's always here, always now, always home. And the beautiful thing is, from this place of resting as awareness, the present moment stops being your enemy. Even when it contains pain, even when it's difficult, it's no longer something you need to escape from or resist or fix before you can be okay. Because you see that your okayness doesn't depend on the content of the moment. It depends on your recognition of what you are. And what you are is always okay. What you are is always at peace. What you are is always free. Not free from pain, but free in the midst of pain. Free to feel it, free to be with it, free to let it move through without being destroyed by it. This is what it means to be present when the present hurts. Not to force yourself to accept what's unacceptable. Not to pretend pain doesn't hurt. but to recognize that you are the space in which pain appears, and that space is infinite, indestructible, always available, always here. And from that recognition, everything becomes workable. Not easy, not painless, not always pleasant, but workable, bearable, part of the full spectrum of being alive and aware and human in this strange, difficult, beautiful existence we find ourselves in.
In a very peculiar trap. We are convinced that life is a journey, a pilgrimage, with a serious purpose at the end. And the goal is to get to that end successfully, meaning with a certain sense of virtue, of accomplishment, to have achieved something, to have left our mark. But what if the entire affair is rather more like a piece of music or a dance? The meaning of a symphony is not contained in its final chord. The meaning of the dance is not to get to a particular spot on the floor. The meaning of it all is in the playing itself, in the dancing itself. So the question I'd like to explore with you is this. What happens when we stop taking this musical, dancing, swirling, star-like existence so dreadfully seriously? You know, we have this immense burden. We walk around with a constant low-grade anxiety that we are not doing it right, that we are not living properly. We are forever preparing to live. We think, I must get through school to get a good job. I must get a good job to have a secure life. I must have a secure life to raise a family. I must raise a family so they can get through school to get a good job. It's an endless cycle of purpose, where the purpose is always elsewhere. It's never right here. It's never now. We are like people reading a novel who are only interested in getting to the last page. And so we skim. We turn the pages frantically, missing all the poetry, all the drama, all the lovely descriptions, just to see how it turns out. And then when we get there, we close the book and say, is that all? And the whole point of the book was in the reading, in the living through it. We are missing the show because we are too busy looking for the meaning behind the show. We are like a person at a concert who does not listen to the music, but instead reads the score, checking for mistakes. The music is playing all around him, and he is missing the entire point. This is what happens when life becomes a problem to be solved, rather than a reality to be experienced. We build up this enormous structure of seriousness. We have to have the right credentials. We have to have the right job title. We have to have the right kind of car, the right address. We have to be seen with the right people. It's a colossal act, a performance, and we are terrified that the audience will see through the cracks, that they will see we are just making it up as we go along. And of course we are. Everyone is. The secret that nobody ever admits is that nobody really knows what's going on. We're all just playing roles. The doctor, the lawyer, the businessman, the mother, the father. They are roles, they are games. And games are fun, so long as you don't confuse the game with your fundamental reality. The problem arises when you forget you are playing, when you think you are your role, that you are the mask. Then the game becomes a prison. It becomes serious, and you have to defend it. You have to prove you are a good, serious, upstanding, purposeful person. But what is the alternative to all this seriousness? It seems frightening. If I am not serious, if I don't have a purpose, then what am I? I become a nothing, a washout, a failure in the eyes of the world. But this is where we have a profound misunderstanding. We think the opposite of seriousness is frivolity, shallowness, a kind of irresponsible laughter. But that's not it at all. The true opposite of taking life seriously is to see it as play, to see the universe itself as fundamentally playful. Look at nature. Does it look serious to you? Look at a kitten chasing its tail. Look at waves lapping against the shore. Look at the patterns of migrating birds in the sky. Do they look like they are on a grim mission? Do the clouds look like they are filled with existential dread? No, they are simply playing. They are expressing themselves. The universe is, at heart, a musical phenomenon. It is a dance of energy. And a dance has no destination. It is its own reason for being. We have this idea that everything in nature has a purpose. The bird sings to attract a mate. The flower is bright to attract a bee. The butterfly has eye spots to scare away predators. It's all an engineering project. But this is just us projecting our own purpose-driven anxiety onto the world. Why does the bird really sing? Why does the wave really break on the shore? Why does the star really shine? Is it not perhaps for the same reason a child sings or skips? For the sheer joy of expression, for the fun of it. We say the bird sings for a purpose, to survive. But I must ask, why survive? What is that for? To sing more songs, to have more babies who will sing more songs. You see, it becomes a circular argument. It's like saying the purpose of music is to get to the end of the composition. It misses the point entirely. The Chinese have a wonderful concept, Wu Wei, often translated as non-action or effortless action. It doesn't mean doing nothing. It means acting without straining, without forcing. It is the way of water, which wears away the hardest rock by yielding. It does not strive. It simply flows. And in that flowing, it accomplishes everything. And they have another word for this attitude towards nature, purposelessness. Now, to our Western ears, that is a terrible insult. Purposeless? That's useless. That's a waste of time. But to the Chinese mind, it is the highest compliment. They look at nature and see it as purposeless. The mountains just are. The rivers just flow. They aren't going anywhere. They aren't achieving anything. They are simply expressing their own nature. And in that, they are profoundly beautiful, profound and trustworthy. We think trust means believing that nature will always give us what we want, that it will be safe and comfortable. But that's not trust. That is a demand. Real trust is like the trust you have when you throw a ball. You let go of it. You have faith in the process. You don't hold on to the ball and run to the other person and carefully place it in their hand. You throw it, you let it fly. Life requires that same kind of trust. It requires you to let go, to stop trying to hold everything so tightly, to stop trying to control every outcome. If you do not have this trust, if you do not trust nature, and by nature I mean both the world outside you and your own inner nature, what is the alternative? The alternative is what we have created. It is a world of total mistrust. It is a world where we feel nature has got to be watched. It has got to be controlled. We can't trust our own instincts, our own desires, our own emotions. They are too dangerous. They are too messy. So what do? We create authorities to manage it all. We create rules, laws, systems, bureaucracies. We create a world where the most important thing is not the living of life, but the recording of it. It is more important that your files are in order than that you are a kind person. It is more important that the university's records are perfect than that its library is full of inspiring books. We are so busy measuring life that we forget to live it. We become our own jailers. We are so afraid of making a mistake, of looking foolish, of not being serious enough, that we fence ourselves in. We create a life that is, as they say, all jail and no prisoner, a structure with nothing alive inside it. But life is inherently messy. It is inherently playful. It is inherently spontaneous. You cannot schedule a moment of awe. You cannot program a belly laugh. You cannot force a genuine insight. These things happen when you let go. They happen when you stop taking yourself so seriously. A true scholar, in the original sense, is not someone who studies to get a degree. The word scholar means leisure. A scholar was a person of leisure who studied things not because they were useful, but because they were fascinating, because they were delightful. They studied the charming irrelevances of life, the things that do not contribute directly to survival, but that make survival worthwhile. Poetry, art, music, philosophy, the patterns of stars, the shapes of shells, this is play. And if you do not have room in your life for the playful, life is not worth living. But, and this is a very important but, if the only reason you play is because it is good for you, because it helps you work better afterwards, then you are not really playing at all. You are just working in a different form. You must learn to do things that have no purpose. Pick up a pebble. Look at it. Don't try to get a sermon out of it. Don't try to make it mean something. Just enjoy its texture, its color, its shape. Just enjoy it. Do not feel you have to justify the moment by saying it advances your aesthetic understanding. Just enjoy the pebble. When you can do that, you become, strangely, a healthy human being. You become able to be a loving, helpful person. But if you can only do things because you are going to get something out of it, you are what I would call a vulture. You are circling over life, waiting to profit from it, instead of landing and joining the dance. So, the first step is to see the incredible weight of seriousness we carry. To see the structure of purpose we have built around ourselves, like a shell. And to begin to wonder, what if we could set it down? Just for a moment. What if we could, as the Chinese say, learn purposelessness? What would that feel like? It would feel like the moment you stop striving and simply listen to the rain. It would feel like watching wild geese fly and be hidden in the clouds. It would feel like watching a ship vanish behind a distant island. It would feel like wandering on and on in a great forest with no thought of return. Haven't you ever done that? Haven't you ever just gone for a walk with no particular place to go? You twiddle your thumbs. You hit a stick against a stump. You are, in that moment, a perfectly rational human being. You have learned the great art of purposelessness. And in that space, life stops being a problem. It becomes a song. And you begin to hear the music that has been playing all along. But this is only the beginning. We have seen the weight. Now we must look at the dancer. We must look at this you that is trying so hard to be serious. What is it? Where did it come from? And is it perhaps also part of the game? So we find ourselves carrying this immense weight. We are playing a role, and we have forgotten that it is a role. We have become convinced that the mask is our true face, that the part we play, the banker, the mother, the student, the failure, the success, is who we are fundamentally. But this you that you take so seriously, this ego, this personality, what is it? Where did it come from? If you look for it, it's rather elusive. It's a collection of memories, a bundle of desires and fears, a certain pattern of behavior. It's a story you tell yourself and others about who you are. I am a person who likes this and dislikes that. I am someone who did this and failed to do that. It is a concept, a thought. And like all thoughts, it is fleeting. It has no solidity. You cannot locate it in the body. Is it in the head, the heart? The brain is an instrument, a fantastic computer, but it is not the operator. The eye cannot see itself. The tooth cannot bite itself. The thinker cannot think itself. This you is a vibration, a pattern, a whirlpool in the stream of life. A whirlpool is a recognizable pattern. You can say, there is the whirlpool, but if you try to grab it, to take it out of the river, you get nothing but a handful of water. The whirlpool is something the river is doing. It is an activity, not a thing. In the same way, what you call me is something the universe is doing, right here and right now. It is a temporary dancing pattern, a gesture, and like a gesture in the air, it is fundamentally empty. It leaves no trace. Now, this can sound frightening. The idea that I am not a solid, enduring thing can feel like annihilation. But is it? Or is it the discovery of your true, vast nature? You are not the whirlpool. You are the whole river. You are not the wave. You are the ocean. We are all actors in this fantastic divine play. And the problem is not that we are acting. The problem is that we are bad actors. We are method actors. We have gotten so absorbed in the part that we've forgotten the curtain will fall. We've forgotten the audience. We've even forgotten that there are other actors on the stage, and we think our role is the only important one. A good actor knows he is acting. He can play the part of a king with tremendous conviction. But when he walks off the stage, he takes off the crown and has a beer. He doesn't go home and order his family about because he was a king on stage. He knows it was a game. The whole of life has a similar nature. It is a drama. It is a play of energy. And when you know that, you can play your part with immense verve, with passion, with compassion, with everything you have. But you won't be deceived. You won't take the tragedies backstage. You won't cling to the triumphs as if they were your permanent identity. You see, when you don't take your ego so seriously, a wonderful thing happens. You begin to relax. The constant low-grade anxiety of having to protect this fragile fictional self begins to dissolve. You can afford to be more spontaneous. You can afford to be foolish. You can afford to make mistakes. Because it's all part of the play. A wave in the ocean is not anxious about crashing on the shore. It's what waves do. It's part of the rhythm. It will gather itself again. In the same way, your successes and failures are just part of the rhythm of your expression. They are not the final judgment on you, because there is no you to be judged in that solid, fixed way. There is only the dancing, the flowing. This is why the Chinese sages praised purposelessness. They saw that nature is not going anywhere. It is just expressing itself. A tree does not purpose to grow. It grows because it is a tree. A bird does not purpose to sing. It sings because it is a bird. We are the same. Our purpose is not some distant goal. Our purpose is to express what we are right now. And what are we? We are the universe. We are nature. We are that same energy that blows out the stars, that shapes the galaxies, that curls the waves. You are not a stranger in a foreign universe. You are this universe, and it is you. So, how do you live this? How do you stop taking the mask so seriously? You don't do anything. That's the great joke. You cannot try to be spontaneous. You cannot make an effort to be effortless. That is like trying to bite your own teeth. Or like a person hearing a funny joke and then stopping to think, I must laugh now to show I understand. The real laugh comes from nowhere. It happens to you. When this realization dawns, life ceases to be a problem. It becomes a game, a very serious game, sometimes. A tragic game, sometimes. But a game nonetheless, and you can play a serious game without taking it seriously. A good chess player is utterly absorbed in the game. He cares deeply, but he does not think. The fate of the universe rests on whether he wins or loses. He knows it's chess, so you can go about your life. You can do your job, raise your family, pay your bills, but you do it with a lightness. You do it as an expression, not as a means of validation. You work not because you have to prove you are a worthy person, but because the work is there to be done, like a mountain is there to be climbed. This is what is called working for the work's sake, singing for the song's sake. It is action without attachment. You pour yourself completely into the moment, and then you let it go. You don't cling to the result. A cat does not pursue a mouse because it has a philosophy of predation. It does it because it is a cat. It is totally absorbed in the pursuit. It is a perfect expression of cattiness. And when the moment is over, it is over. The cat stretches and goes to sleep. It doesn't lie awake wondering if it was a good cat or if it could have caught the mouse more efficiently. It is simply itself. We can learn from that. We can learn to be simply ourselves. Not the idea of ourselves, but the living, breathing, immediate reality of ourselves. When you are no longer defending a fragile self-image, you become incredibly strong. Criticism doesn't shatter you. Failure doesn't define you. Success doesn't inflate you. You can flow with circumstances. You can adapt. You can be like water, which is soft and yielding, yet which can eventually wear away the hardest rock. This is not passivity. This is supreme intelligence. It is action that is in accord with the total situation, not just with your narrow, selfish desire. It is the action of the whole universe expressing itself through you. So you see, the answer to the burden of seriousness is not to become frivolous. It is to become playful, to see the cosmos as it is, a joyous, spontaneous, and yes, sometimes painful dance. And to see yourself not as a lonely dancer, but as the dance itself. But the dance has a rhythm. It has a certain pattern. And to understand that pattern is to understand the deepest joke of all. Now, having seen the weight of our self-constructed seriousness, and having glimpsed the illusion of the separate solitary ego, we are left with a question. Not a question to be answered, but an invitation. An invitation to participate. What is left when you are not busy building a monument to yourself? What remains when the constant narration in your head, the commentary, the judgment, the planning begins to quiet down? What remains is the experience itself, the raw, unfiltered isness of things, the feeling of the wind on your skin, the sound of a distant bird, the coolness of water. This is not a trivial reality. This is the fundamental reality. The world is not something you have to figure out. It is something to be tasted, touched, heard, and seen. You are not a passenger in the universe, being taken for a ride. You are the universe, experiencing itself. The eyes you look out of are not your personal possession. They are the eyes of life itself, looking out at its own creation. The energy that animates your body is the same energy that spins the galaxies. This is not a mystical fantasy. This is the most practical thing in the world. When you know this, not just as an idea, but as a feeling in your bones, your relationship with everything changes. You begin to see that life is not a journey with a destination. It is a musical thing. You are here to sing, to dance, to play. But we have been taught that playing is frivolous, that it is only for children. But I ask you, what is the alternative? All work and no play does not just make Jack a dull boy. It makes him a nervous wreck. It makes him a tyrant. It makes him a machine. The alternative is to join the dance. To understand that your very existence is your justification. You do not need permission to be. You do not need to earn the right to be here. You are here because you are here, just as a rose is red because it is a rose. So how does one live this way? You don't try. Trying is the energy of the separate ego, the energy of seriousness. You simply begin to notice. You notice the moments when you are already not trying. The moment you are captivated by a piece of music and forget yourself. The moment you are so absorbed in a conversation that time stops. The moment you are walking in nature and your endless internal chatter simply ceases. In those moments, you are there. You are fully present. And in that presence, there is no problem. There is only the dance. The goal is not to make those moments happen. The goal is to notice that they are always available, because the dance is always happening. Your very breathing is part of it. Your heartbeat is the drum beat. This is the great liberation. To understand that you are already free. You are already what you are seeking. You are not going to become happy, peaceful, or enlightened at some future date. You can only be those things now. Any effort to become something is a rejection of what you already are, which is the energy of the cosmos. This does not mean you become passive. Quite the opposite. When you are not wasting energy defending an idea of yourself, you have immense energy available for life. You can act with tremendous efficiency and compassion, because your action is not about you. It is about the situation itself. It is the universe responding to itself. You become like the Zen archer, who does not shoot the arrow. It shoots. There is no arrogant archer separate from the bow, the arrow, and the target. There is only the one event, the shooting. This is action without strain. This is wu-wei. And so the call to action is not a call to do something new. It is a call to see something you have been overlooking. It is a call to trust. To trust yourself. To trust your own nature. And the nature of which you are a part. Yes, this is a risk. Life will sometimes let you down with a wallop. But the alternative, the life of total mistrust, of control, of constant surveillance of yourself and the world, that is not a life at all. That is a prison of your own making. The call is to let go, to join the dance that has been going on for billions of years, to sing the song that is already singing itself through you. You are under no obligation to be the same person you were 5 minutes ago. You are under no obligation to be serious. You are under no obligation to justify your existence. Your only obligation, if there is one, is to be true to the deepest truth of your being, that you are a unique, irreplaceable, and temporary expression of the whole universe. And the universe is not serious. It is playful. It is joyful. It is a great cosmic game of hide and seek, where it is both the hider and the seeker. So, go on, play, experiment, be foolish, be magnificent, fail gloriously, succeed lightly, love, lose, feel it all. But whatever you do, don't miss the show by being too busy looking for the meaning behind it. The meaning is in the music. The meaning is in the dance. And you are the music. You are the dance.
There's a strange thing that happens to many who step onto what they call the spiritual path. It begins, as all searches do, with a feeling that something is missing, a quiet ache that ordinary life can no longer satisfy. You sense there's something deeper beneath the noise, something vast and wordless that you've somehow forgotten. So, quite innocently, you begin to look, you read books, you listen to teachers, you meditate, chant, fast, and strive. You chase stillness as though it were a prize waiting at the top of a long staircase. And you tell yourself, once I find it, I'll finally be free. But what you don't realize yet is that the very one who's seeking that freedom is the same one who feels trapped. It's like a man trying to run away from his own shadow. The faster he runs, the more it follows. That is the first trap, you see, the trap of seeking. For most people, the search begins as a reaction to discomfort. You feel restless, lost, unsatisfied, and you imagine that if only you could wake up, life would stop hurting. So you turn the search for peace into another form of struggle, a more elegant kind of ambition. You no longer chase success or status. Now you chase enlightenment. But the movement is the same. The seeker and the businessman, the ascetic and the addict, both are running from the same unease. And so long as you keep seeking, you confirm the very absence you're trying to escape. You say, I am not yet whole. I must find something to complete me. But wholeness was never something to find. It was the silence that was looking. The irony, of course, is that you don't stop seeking because you fail. You stop because you finally exhaust yourself. You grow tired of chasing experiences, tired of comparing your peace to someone else's. And in that moment of giving up, the strangest thing happens. You notice that stillness was here all along. When the searching stops, awareness begins. And yet, even that realization, profound as it may be, carries its own subtle danger. Because now you begin to think, I understand, I've seen through the illusion, and you quietly start to build a new identity around it. You become the one who knows. This is the second trap, the trap of identity. You see, the ego is not destroyed by awakening. It merely changes shape. Before, it was the self that wanted wealth, pleasure, and importance. Now, it becomes the self that wants purity, stillness, and enlightenment. The same actor, just in new costume. You start saying things like, I'm learning to detach, or I no longer let things affect me. But listen closely to the tone behind those words. There's still a subtle I, a center that takes pride in its calmness. You might even begin to feel quietly superior, as though the rest of the world was still asleep while you've seen the truth. But that, too, is just another dream. The awakened ego is more dangerous than the materialistic one, because it hides its pride behind the mask of humility. You start performing spirituality, mistaking the gestures for the essence, You meditate not to be still, but to appear still. You speak softly, not out of peace, but out of control. You post quotes about detachment, all while desperately wanting to be seen as someone who has let go. And so you've traded one identity for another. You've escaped the prison of the world only to build a more beautiful cage in its place. But the soul, you see, cannot breathe in a cage, not even a golden one. True freedom doesn't arrive when you've perfected yourself. It arrives when you no longer need to. It's when you can laugh at your own seriousness, when you can say, "Ah, there I go again, trying to be enlightened." Because the real awakening isn't about becoming special, it's about becoming ordinary again, without shame. Most people don't realize how exhausting the spiritual performance is. Always being aware, always monitoring your thoughts, always maintaining that serene mask. It's tiring to pretend to be peaceful all the time. And life, being infinitely patient, eventually exposes the act. One day, you lose your temper, or you cry, or you feel jealous, and suddenly you think you've failed, but you haven't failed at all. You've just become real again. When you stop trying to be the enlightened version of yourself, awareness becomes effortless, because awareness was never something you could lose. It's not a possession, it's your nature. The great mistake is thinking awakening is about improvement. It's not. It's about recognition. The difference is subtle but profound. Improvement says, I'll work on myself until I am pure. Recognition says, I see that even in my imperfection I am whole. When that recognition dawns, even your flaws begin to look sacred. And this brings us, quite naturally, to the third trap, the trap of goodness. It's easy to see why this one seduces so many. After all, what could possibly be wrong with trying to be good? You try to be kind, compassionate, understanding, and for a while, it feels right. But eventually you notice a tension behind your virtue, a quiet strain, as though you're forcing something unnatural. You smile when you don't mean it. You forgive when you still feel the sting. You tell yourself a good person wouldn't be angry, so you repress your anger and call that forgiveness. But the truth is, real goodness doesn't need to prove itself. It doesn't come from discipline. It flows from understanding. When you truly see how interconnected all things are, kindness becomes spontaneous. You don't try to be kind. You can't help it. When you're genuinely at peace, goodness happens by itself like a flower blooming in the sun. Trying to be good, on the other hand, is often just spiritual pride in disguise. You want to see yourself as virtuous, or you want others to see you that way. But the moment you say, I'm a good person, you've already missed it. Because the moment you identify with goodness, you also create its opposite, those who are not. And so judgment quietly returns, now painted in moral colors. Real compassion, you see, doesn't divide. It doesn't say, you are asleep and I am awake. It doesn't say, I forgive you because I'm above you. It simply sees, and in that seeing, there is understanding. To be truly good, you must forget about being good. The universe doesn't moralize. It simply moves, birth and death, pleasure and pain, all part of one motion. And to awaken is to join that motion without resistance. You might still feel anger, sadness, or desire, but you no longer cling to them. You let them arise and fall like waves, without judging the tide. And slowly, you realize that goodness isn't a destination. It's what remains when you stop pretending to be better than you are. That's the hidden beauty of awakening. It strips away every identity you thought you needed, the seeker, the saint, the savior, until only life itself remains, raw and unfiltered. After all this striving to be good, after all the effort to be still, to be aware, to be pure, a quiet fatigue begins to set in. You start to wonder why, after all these meditations, affirmations, and insights, the peace never seems to stay. You've had glimpses, moments of clarity, even bliss, but they vanish as quickly as they come. And so, once again, you begin to measure. You think, maybe I'm making progress, but slowly. This is the fourth trap, the trap of progress. You see, the modern mind is trained to think in lines and ladders. Everything must be a journey upward, from ignorance to knowledge, from chaos to order, from darkness to light. But awareness doesn't move like that. It doesn't travel. It reveals. You are not climbing toward awakening, you are awakening to what has never moved. But we love the idea of progress. We like to think there's a point somewhere ahead where we'll finally arrive. So we create stages: beginner, intermediate, advanced. We measure our calmness, our mindfulness, our ability to stay present. We grade ourselves spiritually the same way we once graded ourselves in school. But can you see the irony? You've turned the infinite into a curriculum. You've taken something as boundless as consciousness and squeezed it into a chart of self-improvement. Progress assumes time, and awakening is the end of time. It's the collapse of the idea that you are on your way anywhere at all. When you truly understand that, progress loses its meaning, because in this very moment, not a future one, you are already complete. There's nothing to add, nothing to remove. Only the illusion of movement remains, yet the illusion is necessary for a while. It's part of the play. You can't rush the unlearning of effort. Even when you see through the traps, the habits remain the habit to measure, to compare, to check your level. So, what do? You simply notice it happening, and you laugh. That laughter is freedom. You stop treating awakening as an exam and start seeing it as a dance, a rhythm between remembering and forgetting. There will be days of clarity and days of confusion, moments of light and moments of darkness. But the one who sees both is untouched by either. Awakening is not about sustaining one state forever. It's about realizing that you are not the states. When you stop grading your awareness, peace sneaks up on you. It comes not because you earned it, but because you stopped resisting the way things are. And that's when the final illusion often arrives, the one most subtle and seductive of all. It's what I call the trap of escape. After seeing through the other traps, the seeking, the ego, the moral striving, the measuring, a new desire arises, the desire to transcend. You want to be done with it, all the messiness, the emotions, the pain of being human. You want to rise above it, to live only in serenity. But that desire, too, is born from resistance. It is the ego's last disguise, the one who has renounced. You might find yourself thinking, I'm no longer interested in worldly things. You avoid conflict, withdraw from people, stop engaging with the pulse of life. You call this detachment, but it's not detachment, it's avoidance. You haven't transcended the world, you've simply hidden from it. And life, with infinite compassion, won't let you stay there for long. It will send you something, a heartbreak, a loss, a sudden beauty that pulls you back into the human experience. Because you're not meant to escape the world, you're meant to embody it consciously. The ocean doesn't reject its waves, it becomes them. Enlightenment isn't floating above life, it's sinking so deeply into it that you realize there was never a separation to begin with. To awaken is to fall in love with the ordinary, to look at a cup of tea, a tired face, a passing cloud, and feel the whole universe moving there. It's to understand that your search for the divine was always a misunderstanding, because there's nothing in existence that isn't divine. The sacred was never elsewhere. It was here, hidden behind the eyes that were looking. So long as you believe enlightenment will take you out of the world, you will keep missing the holiness of being in it. The truth, you see, is far simpler. You are not here to escape the dream. You are here to wake up within it. And perhaps that's the real purpose of these traps, not to imprison you forever, but to teach you how easily you build your own walls. Every trap is also a mirror. Every illusion, a teacher in disguise. You don't need to destroy them. You only need to see them for what they are. Because the moment you recognize a trap, it loses its power. The moment you stop struggling to escape it, you're already free. Freedom isn't somewhere outside the maze. It's the realization that the walls were never real. When you truly understand that, there's nothing left to chase, nothing left to prove. Even the idea of spirituality begins to dissolve. You stop being a seeker or a knower or a teacher. You become simply alive. And in that aliveness, you notice something profound. Everything is exactly as it should be. The people still chasing, the ones pretending, the ones judging, they're all playing their parts perfectly, just as you once did. So you stop correcting them. You stop trying to wake anyone up. You just live quietly, freely, and deeply awake to the simple fact of being. That is where all paths lead, though none can take you there. Not by effort, not by method, but by the soft collapse of everything you thought you needed to do. And when that collapse finally happens, when all the striving and seeking fade, something breathtaking appears in their place. Not a grand enlightenment, not a cosmic explosion of understanding, but something humble, intimate, familiar, life. Just this, the sound of your breath, the warmth of sunlight on skin, the quiet laughter of knowing that you never had to try so hard. That's when you realize the greatest truth of all. You were never spiritually stuck. You were only pretending to be trapped so you could one day discover the joy of being free. When you've spent long enough searching for freedom, a curious thing begins to happen. You stop believing in escape. The word freedom itself begins to dissolve, because you start to see that it always implied a cage. And when the idea of a cage fades, what's left? Only openness, only life. But this doesn't feel like a sudden revelation. It doesn't arrive with trumpets or angels or cosmic fireworks. It comes quietly, like a sigh at the end of a long day, a deep exhale into what has always been here. You find yourself smiling at your own seriousness. You remember how hard you tried to meditate correctly, how you measured your breathing, your posture, your progress. You remember how you used to feel proud when you felt detached, and guilty when you felt desire. And you can't help but laugh, not mockingly, but tenderly, because you see that all of it, every attempt, every failure, every contradiction, was part of the unfolding. That laughter, that gentle self-forgiveness, is the beginning of true understanding. You realize that life never demanded perfection from you. It only asked that you live it. You were never supposed to master existence, only to experience it. And once you see that, everything relaxes. The war with yourself ends. You stop trying to control your mind, and it quiets on its own. You stop trying to force peace, and peace begins to bloom like a wildflower in the cracks of your effort. You stop pretending to be enlightened, and suddenly, even your confusion feels sacred, because you finally see you were never outside the flow, not even for a moment. The river of being carries everything, your clarity, your doubt, your laughter, your tears. Nothing is out of place. This is what I mean by letting the traps fall away. You don't need to fight them. You don't need to dismantle them one by one. You simply stop identifying with the one who was trapped. It's like waking up from a dream in which you were drowning. The moment you open your eyes, you realize there was never any water. And yet, that dream taught you something about fear, about grasping, about surrender. So you don't regret it. You just smile, stretch, and move on with your day. That's what the journey is. A long, beautiful dream of forgetting and remembering. Once the illusions fall away, something wonderful begins to happen. Not mystical or dramatic, but wonderfully simple. Ordinary moments start to shimmer again. You notice the way sunlight moves through the trees, the sound of wind brushing against leaves, the rhythm of footsteps on pavement. You begin to see how much beauty there is in things that ask for nothing, the scent of rain, a stray cat crossing the road, the quiet hum of the world going on without your interference. You start to live without trying to be aware, because awareness has become effortless. And this, you realize, is what awakening was always pointing to. Not an achievement, not a transformation, but a homecoming. You were never meant to transcend being human. You were meant to remember how divine it already is. That's the ultimate irony. You searched for transcendence only to find that what you were trying to escape was sacred all along. When you stop rejecting life, even your imperfections begin to glow. The same anger that once felt like failure now feels like energy moving through you. The sadness that once seemed unbearable now feels like depth. The emptiness that frightened you becomes a vast sky where everything can appear and disappear freely. You no longer cling to emotions as proof of identity. You no longer resist them as signs of weakness. You simply allow them, like weather passing through the open sky of awareness. And when you do that, when you truly stop judging what arises, you notice that every emotion, no matter how painful, carries a hidden tenderness. Each feeling is life reaching out, saying, "Look, you are still alive. You still feel." It's all part of the same pulse. You begin to realize that the point of spirituality was never to rise above emotion, but to become intimate with it, to hold joy and sorrow, clarity and confusion, all in the same vast embrace. That is the art of letting go. Not throwing things away, but holding them so lightly that they can dance. Now, there's something subtle that happens when you live like this. You stop taking ownership of the movement of life. You stop thinking, "I am doing this," or "I am becoming that." Instead, there's simply doing, simply being. The river moves, and you are the river. The wind blows, and you are the wind. You don't stand apart from life anymore. You are its expression. And because there's no longer a you trying to hold life together, life begins to unfold naturally, without conflict, without resistance. Things fall away when they're ready. People leave when they must. Joy comes, sorrow follows, then joy again. But now, none of it threatens you, because you no longer cling to permanence. You see that impermanence isn't the enemy of peace, it's the reason peace exists. There's a certain peace that comes not from answers, but from finally giving up the need for them. You stop demanding explanations from existence. You stop arguing with the mystery. And the mystery, for the first time, starts to feel like home. You no longer need to understand why things happen the way they do. You trust that they unfold according to a rhythm too vast for the mind to measure. That trust, that quiet faith in life, is what freedom truly is. Freedom isn't the ability to choose every path. It's the ease of walking whichever one appears before you. And in that freedom, you rediscover innocence. You begin to laugh again, not because life is easy, but because you finally stopped expecting it to be anything else. You see that your search was never for enlightenment, it was for simplicity. To be able to wake up in the morning, breathe, and know that this is enough. To eat when you're hungry, to rest when you're tired, to love without strategy, to lose without resentment, to die without regret. That is awakening in its purest form, not fireworks, not transcendence, but ease. If there is a final lesson, it's this. Nothing you let go of is ever truly lost. The illusions fall away, but the truth they disguised remains. The masks crumble, but the face beneath them has always been smiling. The traps dissolve, and you realize they were never meant to imprison you, only to teach you how not to hold on. And once you've learned that, there's nowhere left to go, and nothing left to become. There is only this, the eternal now, breathing through you. You can still meditate, still read, still teach, or pray, but not out of need. You do them as the ocean makes waves, not because it must, but because it can. The wise man still chops wood and carries water, but now he knows the one chopping, the one watching, and the one being chopped are not three, they are one. Life was never asking you to awaken. It was awakening through you, in its own time, in its own way. And perhaps, in the end, that's the only realization there is. You were never spiritually stuck. You were just unfolding. And in the moment you stop trying to move forward, you discover you were never behind. You were home all along. There comes a time, you see, when the noise of emotion fades, not because you've found peace, but because you've stopped knowing what to feel. You wake up and realize that nothing exactly hurts, yet nothing exactly moves you either. The music still plays, the sun still rises, but somehow you feel like a spectator in your own life. And that, perhaps, is the most difficult feeling of all, the feeling of nothing. You tell yourself you should be grateful. Things could be worse, you've known pain before, and this isn't pain. But the absence of sadness doesn't feel like joy. It feels like suspension. You are neither drowning nor swimming, simply floating, watching everything drift past without the strength or desire to reach for it. And so you wonder, what is this emptiness? Is it depression? Is it rest? Or is it something else entirely, the mind's quiet rebellion against constant motion? Most people imagine that life should always be vivid, that we should feel deeply, that every moment should sparkle with meaning. But perhaps that expectation itself is what exhausts us. You can't keep the ocean at high tide forever. Every wave must eventually draw back. Maybe this emptiness isn't a failure of feeling, but the space that feeling needs to return home. You see, emotion, like breath, requires rhythm. You inhale joy, you exhale sorrow, and in between, there's a pause, a still point where nothing moves. That pause is where you are now. It isn't punishment. It's simply part of the natural breathing of the soul. The difficulty is that we don't recognize it as such. We've been conditioned to believe that stillness means something's gone wrong. So when you find yourself empty, you panic. You look for reasons, you analyze, you reach for distractions, anything to avoid the quiet. But life, with infinite patience, sits beside you and whispers, "It's all right. You're not broken. You're just resting." What if the emptiness isn't absence, but cleansing? What if it's life-clearing space inside you, space that used to be filled with noise, with striving, with everyone else's expectations of who you should be? You begin to see that what you call emptiness might actually be truth revealing itself, unfiltered by drama or desire. For the first time, you are not rushing toward the next emotion to prove you're alive. You are simply being. And that's an uncomfortable realization, because being, without embellishment, feels raw. You can't hide behind excitement or sadness. You can't even hide behind hope. There's only awareness, open, bare, and silent. But there is a strange beauty to that silence. You start to notice things again, the way a breeze moves through curtains, the sound of distant laughter, the faint hum of your own heartbeat. Nothing dramatic, yet somehow it feels intimate. You're beginning to sense life not as a performance, but as presence. And maybe that's what the emptiness is for, to bring you back to presence, to pull you away from the endless striving to feel something extraordinary, so you can rediscover the ordinary as sacred. Because what you call emptiness might simply be life's way of teaching you how to see without expectation, how to love without condition, how to exist without the constant need for intensity. There's a story I once told about a man who went into the forest looking for enlightenment. For days, he meditated, chanted, and searched, but nothing happened. On the 5th day, exhausted, he gave up. He sat beneath a tree and simply breathed. In that moment of giving up, he noticed the sound of birds for the first time. He noticed the rhythm of his own breath, the feeling of the earth beneath him, and he began to weep, not from sadness, but from seeing how simple life had always been. That's what happens when the emptiness is allowed to be empty. It fills itself with awareness. You don't have to fight it. You don't have to fill the silence with meaning. Just listen. The same life that once made you feel everything is still here. It hasn't abandoned you. It's simply teaching you to hear in a quieter key. Think of a field after harvest. The soil looks bare, but that barrenness is not death. It's rest. It's preparation. Beneath the surface, life is reorganizing itself. What looks like nothing is the beginning of everything. The same is true for your heart. It's not broken. It's simply reorganizing. It's letting go of what it no longer needs to carry. And when you stop demanding that life feel a certain way, you begin to understand something astonishing, that meaning was never something you created. It was something that revealed itself in moments when you weren't trying. The smile of a stranger, the flicker of candlelight, the quiet comfort of existing at all these things become enough again. So when you feel empty, don't rush to fill it. Let the emptiness be what it is. Let it echo. Let it stretch. Because it is in that space that the next chapter of your aliveness is already forming. And if you can bear to sit there, even for a little while, you might realize that what you thought was numbness was actually clarity the moment before feeling returns, the calm before understanding. You don't need to label it. You don't need to cure it. You just need to stay awake long enough to see what it becomes. Because one day soon, without warning, you'll notice something small, a sound, a scent, a fleeting thought, and it will move you again. And when it does, you'll understand that the emptiness wasn't an ending, but a cleansing. You'll laugh, perhaps softly, and say to yourself, "Ah, it was never gone. It was just quiet." And that quiet, my friend, is the foundation of all joy. And so, after all the searching, after all the noise and striving and breakdowns and beginnings, you come to this quiet space. The world still spins, people still move, things still happen, but for you, something has changed. You are no longer measuring life by its emotional intensity. You are no longer chasing after a feeling to prove that you exist. You are, quite simply, here. And that, though it sounds small, is the greatest arrival of all. When you stop needing to feel something extraordinary, you begin to notice the miracle of the ordinary. The way water glimmers in a glass, the way your breath cools as you exhale, the way stillness itself hums with a presence that can't be described. And it dawns on you that what you called emptiness was never empty at all. It was spacious, vast, quiet, and alive. But we are afraid of quiet things. We're afraid of the in-between, of pauses, of the unspectacular. Because in silence, there's nothing to distract us from ourselves. The mind, used to being occupied, begins to panic. Why am I not feeling? What's wrong? But when you allow the mind to panic and still stay still, you begin to see that the panic itself is only another ripple on the surface. Beneath it, there's something unmoving, something you can't name, but that has been here all along. That something is what you are, the awareness behind the waves, the witness of both joy and sorrow, presence and absence, fullness and emptiness. You begin to understand what the sages meant when they said that the true self is untouched by the changes of the world. It's not that life stops affecting you. It's that you stop mistaking its movements for your identity. When you say, "I feel empty," who is it that notices the emptiness? When you say, "I'm not sad," who is it that sees the absence of sadness? That one, the quiet observer, is what you've been searching for all your life. You were never meant to fill the emptiness. You were meant to recognize yourself within it. Emptiness, in this way, becomes a mirror. It reflects back not what's missing, but what has always been. It shows you that the peace you thought you had to earn through struggle was already present in the very stillness you were avoiding. There's a certain humility that comes with this realization. You begin to laugh at how hard you tried to fix what was never broken. You see how every emotional storm you once feared eventually passed, and how each one left you a little softer, a little more open. You see how even the emptiness, this quiet space you once called void, is not against you, but for you. It's life's way of giving you back to yourself. And now, when feelings do return, when joy or sorrow comes again, they don't own you. They move through you like weather. You let them come, and you let them go. You no longer demand that life be constant sunlight. You're content to stand in the rain, because you see now that even rain has its own kind of music, its own way of washing things clean. And this is perhaps the strangest truth, that the deepest fullness often hides in what the world calls emptiness. You might notice, too, how different your relationships feel from this place. When you are no longer desperate to feel, you no longer demand that others give you something to complete you. You stop turning love into a transaction. You love people for their being, not for their usefulness to your emotional narrative. You see that they, too, are walking through their own quiet spaces, their own seasons of emptiness. And suddenly, compassion blooms. You no longer need to rescue anyone, nor do you need anyone to rescue you. You simply share presence, and that is love in its purest form. We've been taught that love must burn bright, that it must overwhelm and intoxicate. But the truest love is more like moonlight, steady, cool, and quietly illuminating everything it touches. When you sit beside someone in silence and still feel connected, that is love. When you can walk through emptiness without demanding it to end, that is love. And so, your emptiness becomes your teacher. It teaches you patience, humility, gentleness. It teaches you that nothing needs to be forced, because everything is already unfolding exactly as it must. The great paradox of being human is that we run from what we most need to meet. We try to escape silence, not realizing that silence is where we hear life most clearly. We try to escape boredom, not realizing that boredom is simply the mind's restlessness before it dissolves into peace. You begin to understand that life's invitations rarely come in fireworks. They come in whispers. They come in the pauses between thoughts, in the spaces between heartbeats, in the gentle moments when you stop insisting that things must be different. There's an immense freedom in no longer needing every day to feel significant. You start to see that ordinary moments, washing dishes, walking, breathing, contain the same essence as enlightenment. The same awareness that watches galaxies spin is the awareness that watches your hands move under warm water. And that realization, my friend, changes everything. Because once you truly see it, you can never again believe that your life is meaningless. Meaning is not found in what you achieve or what you feel. It is found in the simple act of being aware. Now, perhaps you wonder, if life is so simple, why does it take so long for us to see it? Why do we have to go through heartbreak, exhaustion, emptiness, before we understand? Because simplicity cannot be taught, it must be rediscovered. The mind is addicted to complexity. It builds elaborate theories about who you are and what you must do. It fills the silence with commentary, with worry, with endless striving. But life, in its quiet wisdom, eventually shows you that none of that noise was ever necessary. So it lets you burn out. It lets you reach the end of your strength, the end of your ambitions, the end of your emotions, until, exhausted, you fall back into stillness. And in that fall, you finally see what was there all along: peace without reason, love without condition, being without need. That's the gentle trick of the universe. It hides itself in the very places you're most afraid to look, in silence, in loss, in emptiness, knowing that when you finally stop running, you will see that it was never gone. And when that realization sinks in, you don't just understand it intellectually, you feel it. You feel that everything is made of the same essence. The sound of the wind, the beating of your heart, the passing of time, all of it woven from the same thread. You realize that emptiness isn't the absence of life, it's the canvas upon which life paints. And from that moment on, you no longer need the highs and lows to feel alive. You can sit in the quiet and smile, because you know that even in stillness, you are surrounded by the miracle of being. There's a kind of maturity that comes with this seeing. Not the seriousness of age, but the softness of understanding. You become less interested in proving anything, less in a hurry to arrive anywhere. You begin to treat your own emotions like weather, beautiful when they come, but never personal. You find yourself saying, "Ah, here is sorrow," or "Ah, here is joy," and watching both with equal tenderness. And this, I think, is the essence of freedom, to be so deeply at peace with change that nothing can truly disturb you anymore. It's not indifference. It's intimacy. You are no longer resisting life. You are touching it directly. Even your emptiness, when it comes again as it will, becomes a kind of friend. You recognize it, welcome it, let it sit beside you. You no longer ask it to leave, because you know it is only life rearranging itself once more. And slowly, the great mystery of all this begins to reveal itself, that what you are looking for has never been elsewhere. The wholeness you seek was never lost. You were simply looking through the eyes of longing rather than the eyes of being. In the end, the journey from sadness to emptiness and from emptiness to peace is not about changing your life, it's about waking up to what has always been true. That even in the moments when you feel nothing, life is still holding you. That even when you feel detached, you are still deeply connected. That even in your quietest hour, you are still the sound of the universe breathing. And maybe, when all is said and done, that is what Alan Watts was trying to tell us all along. That awakening is not about feeling more, it's about needing less. It's the realization that being empty is not the opposite of being full. It's the same thing, seen from the other side. The fullness you've been searching for was never out there. It was always in the quiet, waiting for you to stop searching long enough to hear it. So if you're not sad, just empty. Take heart. You are not broken. You are being made spacious enough to hold everything. Because when emptiness and awareness meet, that's what we call awakening.